Tuesday morning, my banking app flashed a chilling red line. Access denied. My father answered my panic with terrifying calmness. Minutes later, at the bank, I stared at a forged power of attorney and a transfer for $465,000 scheduled to clear by noon. But the real horror was the attached capacity letter declaring me incompetent. The fax header matched my mother's office number perfectly. My name is Vivian Ortiz, and I learned the hard way that the most dangerous heist does not begin with a gun or a ski mask, but with a quiet, digital click on a Tuesday morning. The sun was just starting to burn through the morning haze over St. Petersburg, casting long, sharp shadows across my kitchen counter. It was the kind of morning that promised humidity and routine. I had my coffee in one hand, black and scalding, and my phone in the other. It was muscle memory. Thumb to the screen, swipe up, tap the blue icon of the Crown Haven Trust and Bank app. I did this every single morning, a ritual of reassurance to remind myself that the safety net my grandmother left me was still there, still holding the line between me and the unpredictability of the world. Usually, the app would greet me with a Face ID check, a brief spinning wheel, and then the comforting sight of my balance, $480,000. It was not just a number, it was my freedom. It was the down payment on the house I was looking at in Kenwood. It was the capital for the design studio I was finally brave enough to launch next year. It was my life, quantified and secured behind layers of biometrics and passwords that I had updated less than 3 months ago. But today, there was no spinning wheel. There was no balance. The screen flashed once, a harsh, violent stutter, and then settled on a static white background with a single line of text in bold red letters. Access denied. I stared at it. My brain refused to process the words. It felt like reading a sentence in a language I did not speak. I tapped the screen. Nothing happened. I swiped the app closed and reopened it. My thumb moving a little faster, a little more frantic. The Face ID icon popped up, scanned my face, and gave that little affirmative vibration. But then the red wall slammed down again. Access denied. A cold prickle of sweat broke out on the back of my neck. It was probably a system error. Banks had maintenance windows. Servers crashed. I tried to rationalize the panic rising in my chest, but my gut was already screaming that this was different. This did not look like a service unavailable message. This looked personal. It looked like an eviction notice. I set the coffee mug down on the counter, missing the coaster, the ceramic clatter echoing too loudly in the quiet apartment. I ran to my bedroom and grabbed my laptop. I sat on the edge of the bed, my fingers flying across the keyboard as I navigated to the Crown Haven website. I typed in my username. I typed in my password, the complex string of 16 characters I had memorized like a prayer. The screen refreshed. Your account access has been revoked. Please contact the administrator. Revoked. The word hung there, heavy and final, not locked, not suspended, revoked. Then came the notification on my phone, a generic chime that usually signaled a sale at a clothing store or a weather alert. I looked down. It was an email from the bank's security team. The subject line was terrifyingly vague. Account access access update. I opened it, my breath catching in my throat. Dear Ms. Ortiz, notice is hereby given that the access credentials for the primary trust account ending in 4492 have been updated in accordance with the security protocols requested on January 26th. If you did not authorize this change, please contact us immediately. January 26th. That was yesterday. I had been at work all day. I had not requested any changes. I had not stepped foot inside a bank. I had not even logged in yesterday. The room seemed to tilt slightly to the left. Updated was a polite corporate euphemism. My access had not been updated. It had been stolen. My first instinct was to call the fraud line, but something stopped me. A heavy, sickening intuition settled in the pit of my stomach. It was the specific phrasing of the email. In accordance with security protocols, not due to suspicious activity, it implied authorization. It implied that someone had walked in, or logged in, and proven they had the right to lock me out. I dialed my parents' landline. I do not know why I did it. Maybe because my father had been the co-trustee years ago before I turned 25. Maybe because, in a crisis, you revert to the people who are supposed to protect you. The phone rang 3 times. Hello? It was my father. His voice was calm, unsettlingly calm. Usually, at 8 in the morning, he was rushing, chaotic, looking for his glasses or complaining about the news. Today, he sounded like he was sitting by the phone, waiting. "Dad," I said, my voice tight. "Something is wrong with the trust account. I can't get in. It says access denied. I think I've been hacked." There was a pause. It was only a second or two, but it stretched out, filled with a static silence that felt heavy. "You haven't been hacked, Vivian," he said. The air left my lungs. He did not ask what happened. He did not sound surprised. He sounded rehearsed. "What?" I asked, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. "What do you mean?" "It is being handled," he said. His tone was flat, devoid of the warmth I associated with him. It was the voice he used when he was talking to insurance adjusters or contractors he did not trust. "We had to step in. It's a family matter. We are just securing things before they get out of hand." "Securing things?" I stood up, pacing the small length of my bedroom. "Dad, that is my money. That is my trust. I am 32 years old. You can't just step in. What did you do?" "Vivian, please." My mother's voice cut in from the extension. I had not realized she was on the line. Her voice was different from his. It was soft, dripping with that cloying, poisonous concern she weaponized so well. "Don't get hysterical. This is exactly why we had to do this. You sound manic." "I am not manic," I shouted, then immediately lowered my voice, realizing I was playing right into the script they were writing for me. "I am locked out of my own bank account. I am reacting like a normal person who just found out she has been robbed." "See?" my mother said, her voice dropping to a theatrical whisper, as if she were speaking to a doctor in a hallway. "She is spiraling. It is for the best. Hector, we are doing the right thing." "Mom, listen to me," I said, trying to steady my breathing. "I don't know what you think you are doing, but you need to undo it. Right now, you do not have the legal right to touch that account. I removed you as trustees 7 years ago." "We are acting under advisement," my father said, his voice hardening. "We have the necessary paperwork. It is temporary. Vivian, just until you are stable, until you can handle the responsibility again." "Stable?" I laughed, a harsh, jagged sound. "I have held down a senior marketing job for 5 years. I have an 800 credit score. I have never missed a bill." "What are you talking about?" "Money changes people," my mother sighed. "We are just protecting you from yourself. You will thank us later." My phone buzzed against my ear. I pulled it away for a split second to check the screen. It was a text message from my younger sister. "Raina, don't make this harder than it has to be. Viv, Mom and Dad are just trying to save you. Stop fighting them. You know you get confused." I stared at the message. The coordination was absolute. They were a united front, a phalanx of gaslighting designed to make me question my own reality. Raina, who had borrowed $5,000 from me last year and never paid it back, was now lecturing me on financial responsibility. Raina, who still lived in their guest house, was telling me I was the confused one. I put the phone back to my ear. The fear was evaporating, replaced by a cold, crystalline anger. It was a sensation I had never truly felt toward them before. Disappointment? Yes. Frustration? Often. But this was betrayal. This was a surgical strike on my existence. "I am not confused," I said, my voice dropping an octave. I stripped all the emotion out of it. I stopped pleading. "And I'm not asking you for permission." "Vivian," my father warned, the authority in his voice sharpening. "Do not do anything rash. Stay at your apartment. We can come over later and explain the structure of the new arrangement." "The new arrangement," I repeated. The audacity of it was breathtaking. "No, I don't think so." "Where are you going?" my mother asked, her tone spiking with sudden sharpness. "I am going to the bank," I said. "I am going to walk into the Crown Haven branch on 4th Street, and I am going to fix this." "Do not go to the bank," my father snapped. It was an order. "You will embarrass yourself. You will make a scene. And they will just call us anyway because we are the guardians now. Don't make a scene. Vivian." Guardians. The word hit me like a physical blow. Guardianship was for children, for the elderly with dementia, for the severely incapacitated. They were not just taking the money. They were taking my personhood. They were trying to erase me legally. "I won't make a scene," I said. "Good," my father said, exhaling. "Just stay put." "I won't make a scene," I repeated. Staring at my reflection in the hallway mirror, I looked pale, but my eyes were clear. "I'm going to make a police report." I didn't wait for their reaction. I pressed the red button and ended the call. The silence that followed was deafening. I stood there for 10 seconds, just breathing. My hands were shaking, but my mind was racing with terrifying clarity. This was not a misunderstanding. This was not an intervention. This was a raid. I grabbed my purse. I checked for my ID, my driver's license, and my passport card. I grabbed a folder of documents from my desk drawer, my tax returns from last year, the original trust deed copy I kept, and my birth certificate. I did not know what I would need, but I knew I needed to prove I was me. I walked out of the apartment and locked the door. The humidity hit me the moment I stepped onto the pavement, thick and oppressive. I got into my car, a sensible 4-year-old sedan that I had paid off 2 years ago. I plugged my phone into the center console. As I backed out of the driveway, another notification lit up the dashboard screen. Security alert, new device, trusted. I slammed on the brakes, the tires chirping against the asphalt. I grabbed the phone, a new device. iPhone 15 Pro Max, Reina, has been added to your trusted list for 2-factor authentication. I felt the blood drain from my face. Reina, my little sister. They were not just freezing the account, they were actively taking it over. They were changing the keys to the castle while I was sitting in the driveway. Trusted device meant that any code sent to verify my identity would now go to her phone, not mine. They were locking the digital doors and bolting them shut. I looked at the time. 8:42 in the morning. The bank opened at 9. I threw the car into drive and merged into traffic. I did not turn on the radio. I did not cry. I drove with a singular, terrifying focus. My parents thought they were dealing with the daughter they could bully, the one who sought their approval, the one who would crumble under the weight of their collective disappointment. They thought, "Don't make a scene" would keep me in my apartment, paralyzed by the fear of social embarrassment. They were wrong. The notification about Reina's phone being added was the final piece of the puzzle. It confirmed that there was no holding pattern. There was no temporary management. You do not add a sibling's phone to a trust fund account unless you plan to move money, and you plan to move it fast. I pressed the accelerator. Weaving through the morning rush hour on 1st Avenue, the skyscrapers of downtown St. Petersburg rose up ahead, gleaming in the sun. Somewhere in there, inside the cool, marble-floored lobby of Crown Haven, my life was being dismantled on a computer screen. I had 18 minutes to get there before the doors opened. 18 minutes to prepare myself for a war I never thought I would have to fight. My father's voice echoed in my head. Family must handle this. He was right. I was going to handle it. But he forgot one thing. I was family too, and I was the one with the truth on my side. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white. As the bank came into view, I was not going in there as a confused daughter. I was going in there as the victim of a 6-figure theft. And I was going to burn their arrangement to the ground, even if I had to do it quietly, one document at a time. The air conditioning inside the Crown Haven Trust and Bank branch was set to a temperature that felt less like comfort and more like preservation. It was the kind of aggressive, sterile chill designed to keep people moving, or perhaps to keep them calm when they were talking about large sums of money. I stepped through the double-glass doors from the humid street. Petersburg morning, and the sweat on my back instantly turned cold. The lobby was quiet. It was 9:05 in the morning. The hushed atmosphere felt sacred, amplified by the high ceilings and the soft, rhythmic clacking of keyboards from the teller line. I walked straight to the reception podium. The woman standing there was named Sarah, according to her silver name tag. She looked up with a practiced, professional smile that faltered the moment she made eye contact with me. I knew what I looked like. I had caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror before I ran in. My hair was pulled back in a severe, messy knot. My face was devoid of makeup, pale and drawn, with dark circles under my eyes that spoke of adrenaline rather than fatigue. I was wearing a wrinkled blouse and jeans, not the business casual attire I usually wore for appointments. I looked like someone who had just received news of a death. "Good morning," Sarah said, but her voice lacked the usual scripted bounce. She leaned forward slightly, her brows knitting together. "Miss, are you all right?" "I need to see a banker," I said. My voice was steady, but it sounded thin in the cavernous room. "Immediately. It is an emergency regarding my trust account. Usually, this is the part where they tell you to take a seat, or ask if you have an appointment, or offer you a bottle of water while you wait for 20 minutes. But Sarah looked at my hands, which were gripping the edge of her podium so hard my knuckles were translucent. She saw the folder of documents I was clutching like a shield. She made a decision. "Come with me," she said softly. She bypassed the waiting area entirely. She walked out from behind the podium and led me down a corridor lined with frosted glass offices. She did not treat me like a customer who had forgotten a password. She treated me like a patient in triage. She opened the door to the third office on the left. "Graham," she said to the man sitting at the desk, "I have a client here with an urgent account issue. Can you take her now?" Graham Voss looked up. He was younger than I expected, maybe in his late 30s, with a sharp jawline and the kind of meticulous grooming that suggested he took his fiduciary duties very seriously. He wore a navy suit and wire-rimmed glasses. He took one look at Sarah's face, then at mine, and stood up immediately. "Of course," he said, gesturing to the leather chair opposite his desk. "Please, sit down." Sarah closed the door behind me, sealing us in. The room was soundproofed. The hum of the lobby vanished, replaced by the low whir of a computer fan. "I am Vivian Ortiz," I said. Sitting on the edge of the chair, I placed my folder on the desk. "I tried to log into my account this morning. It said access denied. My parents told me they have taken over management of my funds. I did not authorize this." Graham nodded, his expression remaining neutral, but his eyes sharpened. He sat down and woke up his computer. "Let me pull up your profile. Ms. Ortiz," he said. "Do you have your identification?" I slid my driver's license across the polished mahogany. He took it, studied it for a second longer than necessary, and then began to type. The sound of his typing was the only noise in the room. Click, clack, click, pause, click, clack. I watched his face. I was looking for the twitch. I was looking for the moment the system told him something that did not make sense. It took about 30 seconds. Graham stopped typing. His hand hovered over the mouse. He leaned in slightly closer to the screen, his eyes narrowing behind his lenses. He did not say anything. He just stared. Then he clicked once. Then he clicked again. Harder this time. The silence stretched out, thick and suffocating. "What is it?" I asked. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Graham slowly took his hand off the mouse and looked at me. The professional mask had slipped. Just a fraction. He looked disturbed. "Ms. Ortiz," he started, his voice measured. "The system shows that your online access was manually disabled yesterday afternoon." "I know that," I said. "Why?" "It was disabled because the account status was changed," Graham said. He turned the monitor slightly away from me, a reflexive move to protect data. Even though it was my data, The account is now under the administration of a power of attorney. Hearing the words spoken aloud by a stranger in a suit made it real in a way the phone call had not. Power of attorney. It was a legal surrender. It was the tool you gave someone when you were in a coma, or deploying to a war zone, or suffering from advanced Alzheimer's. I never signed a power of attorney, I said. I kept my voice low, forcing the words out with absolute precision. I have never signed any legal document giving my parents control. Never. Graham looked at the screen again, then back at me. The system indicates the document was filed yesterday. It was not mailed in. It was not faxed. He paused, looking specifically at a line on his screen. It was submitted in person, here, at this branch. The room seemed to spin. That is impossible, I said. I was at work yesterday. I work at Northline Strategy Group in Tampa. I was there from 8:30 in the morning until 6 in the evening. I have building security logs. I have witnesses. I was not here. Graham's face grew grave. He was beginning to understand the shape of the problem. This was not a dispute about permissions. This was a crime in progress. You were not here yesterday at 2:15 in the afternoon? He asked. No, I said firmly. I was in a budget meeting 20 miles away. Graham swiveled his chair fully toward me. He clasped his hands on the desk. Ms. Ortiz, if you did not submit this document, then we have a very serious situation. A power of attorney grants the agent broad authority. It effectively allows them to act as you. I want it revoked, I said. Right now, remove it. It is not that simple, Graham said, and I could see the regret in his eyes. Once a POA is accepted and processed, especially one that appears to be notarized and witnessed, we have to verify the revocation legally. We have to investigate. Investigate? I felt the panic rising again, hot and sharp. While you investigate, do they have access to my money? Graham hesitated. That hesitation was the most terrifying thing I had seen all morning. He turned back to his keyboard and typed rapidly, navigating to a different screen. I am checking the transaction history, he murmured. Sometimes, with a new POA, there is a delay in... He stopped. The color drained from his face. It was subtle, just a slight blanching of the skin around his nose and mouth. But I saw it. He stared at the screen, his lips parting slightly. Mr. Voss, I said. Graham, tell me. He looked up at me, and this time, there was urgency in his eyes. There is a wire transfer scheduled, he said softly. How much? I demanded. $465,000, he said. The number hung in the air. $465,000. It was almost everything. They were leaving less than $15,000 behind. They were gutting me. They were not managing my finances. They were liquidating my existence. Where is it going? I asked. It is an external transfer, Graham said, reading from the screen. To an account at a different institution. The beneficiary is listed as Ortiz Household Bridge. Stop it, I said. Cancel it. Graham looked at the digital clock in the corner of his monitor. The status is scheduled. It is set to clear the Federal Reserve wire window at 12:05 this afternoon. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was 9:15. We had less than 3 hours. Cancel it, I repeated, my voice shaking. I cannot just delete a scheduled wire that was authorized by a documented power of attorney, Graham said, his voice straining with the bureaucratic reality of his job. The system views it as a valid instruction from a legal representative. If I cancel it without a fraud protocol, the system might automatically re-queue it, or the other party could simply reinitiate it immediately. Then open a fraud protocol, I said. Do whatever you have to do. Do not let that money leave this building. Graham looked at me. He was assessing me, in the banking world. Family fraud was messy. Usually, it was a misunderstanding, or an elder getting confused, or a domestic dispute. But I was 32, lucid, and presenting a clear alibi for the time the document was submitted. I was not hysterical. I was terrified. Yes, but I was rational. I was looking him in the eye and giving him a direct instruction to save my life. If I open a fraud case, Graham said slowly, it is the nuclear option. We do not just stop the transfer. We freeze everything. Your debit card will stop working. Your automatic bill pays will bounce. You will not be able to withdraw a single penny until the investigation is concluded. It could take weeks, maybe a month. You will have zero access to your funds. I don't care, I said without hesitation. I don't care if I have to eat ramen noodles for a month. I don't care if my electric bill bounces. If that money leaves at 12:05, I will never see it again. Freeze it. Graham held my gaze for 1 second longer, making sure I understood the gravity of what I was asking. Then he nodded. He turned to his keyboard. Okay, he said. I am placing a code red fraud hold on the trust. I am flagging the POA as contested and potentially fraudulent. He typed. It was a long series of keystrokes. He had to enter his manager override code. He had to select specific drop-down menus. I watched his finger hover over the enter key. Once I do this, he said, nobody gets in. Not you, not your parents, not your sister. The account goes dark. Do it, I said. He pressed the key. I stared at the back of the monitor, imagining the digital gates slamming shut. Graham watched the screen for a moment, waiting for the confirmation. Done, he said, exhaling a breath he must have been holding. Disbursement suspended. The wire is flagged. It will not clear at 12:05. I slumped back in the chair, the tension leaving my body in a rush that made me feel dizzy. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you. Do not thank me yet, Graham said, and his tone was grim. He turned the monitor so I could see it for the first time. On the screen, there was a red banner across the top of my account profile, but below that, Graham pointed to a scanned document icon. We stopped the money, he said, but the bank still has a legal document on file that says you are incapacitated, and until we prove that document is fake, you are technically not in charge of your own money. We have stopped the theft, Ms. Ortiz, but we have not stopped the attackers. He opened the scanned file. I need you to look at this, he said. This is the power of attorney they submitted yesterday. I leaned forward. The image on the screen was high resolution. I saw the standard legal boilerplate text. I saw the notary stamp, and then I saw the signature at the bottom. It was my name. It was written in blue ink. It looked exactly like my signature. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. It was not just a forgery. It was a perfect forgery. The loop of the V, the sharp cross of the T, the flourish at the end of Z. If I had not known with absolute certainty that I had not signed it, I might have believed it myself. That is not me, I said, pointing at the screen. But it looks like me. It does, Graham agreed quietly. Which is why the teller accepted it. And that brings us to the next problem. What is the next problem? I asked. The teller who processed this, Graham said, tapping a code on the screen. Her employee ID is logged here, but she is not in today. She called out sick this morning. He looked at me, and the implication hung heavy in the cold air between us. This was not just your parents walking in off the street, Graham said. They had help, and they had a plan. Open the rest of the file, I said, my voice hardening again. I want to see everything. There is an attachment, Graham said. A capacity letter. To invoke a power of attorney on a trust like this, usually you need proof that the beneficiary is unable to manage their affairs. I am perfectly capable, I said. According to this, Graham said, clicking on the second page, you are not. This is a letter signed by a physician. It states that you suffered a psychotic break 3 days ago and are currently under home supervision. I stared at the letter on the screen. It was on letterhead from a local medical group. It had a doctor's signature. It looked official. It looked ruinous. This is a lie, I said. I have never met this doctor. Look at the top of the page, Graham said, pointing to the fax header line, the tiny text that appears when a document is transmitted. Do you recognize that number? I squinted at the grainy numbers, 727-555-8921. My stomach dropped. I knew that number. I had dialed it 1,000 times since I was a child. Yes, I said, my voice barely a whisper. That is not a doctor's office. Whose number is it? Graham asked. It is my mother's real estate office, I said. She faxed a fake doctor's note from her own desk. Graham sat back. That is a mistake, he said. Criminals make mistakes, and that number is going to be the first nail in their coffin. He reached for his desk phone. I am calling the branch manager, he said, and then we are going to need to call the police, because this is no longer just a banking issue. Ms. Ortiz, this is identity theft, wire fraud, and conspiracy. You were right to come in. I looked at the screen, at the red banner that said, suspended. I had won the first round. The money was safe for now. But as I looked at the fax header from my mother's office, I realized that my father had been wrong on the phone. This wasn't a family matter anymore. It was a crime scene, and I was the only witness. The silence in the small glass office was heavy, broken only by the hum of the hard drive and the thudding of my own pulse in my ears. Graham Voss sat motionless, his eyes scanning the digital document on his monitor with the intensity of a bomb disposal technician. He had stopped being a customer service representative the moment he clicked the fraud hold button. Now, he was an investigator, and I was the crime scene. He rotated the monitor fully toward me again. The glow of the screen seemed harsh in the dim office. I need you to look at this closely, Ms. Ortiz, Graham said, his voice stripped of any retail warmth. I need you to look at the signature on the power of attorney, not just the shape of it, but the stroke weight. I leaned in. The screen displayed a high-resolution scan of the signature block. There, on the line marked Principal, was my name, Vivian Ortiz. It was terrifying. It was not a bad forgery. It was a masterpiece of mimicry. The loop of the V was correct. The way I crossed my T's, slightly higher than average, was there. But as I stared at it, the horror set in. It was my signature, but it was dead. When I sign my name, there is a rhythm, a speed. The ink trails off at the end of the Z. Here, the lines were uniform. The pressure was constant from the first letter to the last. It is too perfect, I whispered, feeling a wave of nausea. It looks like a stamp. It is likely a tracing, Graham said, zooming in until the pixels blurred. Or a digital composite printed onto the paper before scanning. It has the geometry of your hand. But none of the biology. It is insultingly precise. It is the uncanny valley of handwriting. He scrolled down. Below the signature was a notary stamp. State of Florida. Commission expires. October 2028. The stamp was smudged, just enough to look authentic, but the seal was clear. A notarized forgery, Graham murmured, typing a note into his case file. That means they either fooled a notary, or the notary is in on it. But this, he clicked to the next page of the PDF. This is the piece that allowed them to bypass the usual security questions. The header read, Physician's Statement of Incapacity. I felt the blood drain from my face. This was the document I had only glimpsed before, but now Graham was forcing me to read it. It was formatted like a standard medical evaluation. Patient, Vivian Ortiz. Date of examination, January 25th. Did you see a doctor on January 25th? Graham asked. He had to ask. It was part of the protocol. No, I said, my voice shaking. I was at a brunch with two of my colleagues. I was nowhere near a hospital. Graham read from the screen, his voice flat. The letter claims you were admitted for an emergency psychiatric evaluation following an episode of acute dissociation and fiscal irresponsibility. It cites a diagnosis of, quote, temporary cognitive impairment limiting financial judgment, unquote. It recommends immediate transfer of financial authority to the designated kin to prevent self-harm through asset liquidation. I sat back, stunned. The language was so precise. Fiscal irresponsibility, asset liquidation. It was weaponized vocabulary. It was designed to trigger every red flag in a banking system. It painted a picture of a woman who was manic, dangerous to herself, and needing rescue. It was a narrative my mother had been planting in small doses for years, that I was high-strung, that I didn't understand money, and now she had codified it into a medical diagnosis. "This is insane," I said. "It is a fabrication. Who signed this?" "Dr. Eris Thorne," Graham read. "License number listed. We will verify that. But look at the letterhead." I looked. Gulf Coast Behavioral Health Partners. It looked legitimate. It had a logo. It had an address in Clearwater. "If a banker sees this," Graham said quietly, "combined with a notarized power of attorney, they do not ask questions. They assume they are helping a family in crisis. This document is a master key." He tapped a key, bringing up the file's properties. "But criminals always leave a fingerprint," Graham said. "And usually, it is because they are arrogant. They think we won't look at the metadata." He pointed to the top of the digital scan. There, in faint, dot matrix font, was the transmission line, the fax header, sent from 727-555-8921, January 26, 1400. "We saw this before," Graham said. "But I need to document your formal statement on it. You recognize this number." "I did," I said. The anger was replacing the shock again, cold and sharp. "It is a landline. It belongs to Ortiz Realty Group, my mother's office on Central Avenue." Graham typed rapidly. "So, this document, which claims to be from a doctor's office in Clearwater, was actually faxed from a real estate office in St. Petersburg." "Yes," I said. "And the timestamp, 2:00 yesterday. That is exactly when they walked into this branch." "They faxed it to themselves," Graham said, shaking his head in disbelief. "They likely walked in, told the teller the doctor was faxing the capacity letter right now, and then had an accomplice. Or maybe your mother herself. Remotely. Send the fax to the branch's secure line at that exact moment. It creates an illusion of third-party verification." He stopped typing and picked up his desk phone. He dialed a 4-digit extension. "Maris," he said. "It is Graham. I need you in Office 3. Now, we have a code red confirmed. It is an internal breach protocol. Yes, the client is with me." He hung up. "Maris Cole is our branch manager," Graham explained. "She needs to see this. This is no longer just a transaction dispute. This is an attack on the bank's liability." A moment later, the door opened. Maris Cole walked in. She was a woman in her 50s who radiated an aura of absolute control. She wore a sharp gray suit, and her hair was cut in a precise bob. She did not look like someone who offered cookies to new customers. She looked like someone who solved problems by eliminating them. "Graham," she said, nodding to him, then turning to me. "Ms. Ortiz, I am Maris Cole. Graham has briefed me via the internal chat. I am taking over the incident response." She did not sit down. She stood behind Graham, looking at the screen. She saw the red access denied banner. She saw the frozen wire transfer. She saw the fax header. "Okay," Maris said. Her voice was lower than Graham's, commanding. "Here is the situation. The wire is stopped. That is the good news. The bad news is that as far as the legal system is concerned, we are currently holding funds against the instructions of a valid power of attorney." "It is not valid," I said. "It is forged." "I believe you," Maris said, looking me in the eye. But belief is not documentation. If we do not handle this perfectly, your parents can sue the bank for freezing the assets, and they can use that same capacity letter to get an emergency court order to force us to release the funds. We need to be bulletproof." She turned to Graham. "Plan of action. 3 steps. Write this down." Graham's fingers hovered over the keyboard. "Step 1, Maris said. Maintain the fraud hold under the Patriot Act provisions regarding suspicious identity verification. That gives us a federally mandated lock that overrides a power of attorney for 48 hours. It buys us time. Done, Graham said. Step 2, Maris continued. Lock the upload trail. Nobody deletes anything. I want the security footage from the lobby at 2:15 yesterday, pulled and saved to a hard drive in my safe. I want the digital log of that fax transmission. I want the audit trail of the teller who accepted it. The teller is out sick, Graham reminded her. I know, Maris said, her eyes narrowing. I just checked her file. We will deal with her later. Secure the logs before she, or anyone else, can scrub them. Step 3, Maris said, turning back to me. Independent verification. We do not call the number on that letterhead. Graham, you find the public listing for Dr. Aris Thorne. You call his office directly. You ask if he has a patient named Vivian Ortiz. You ask if he signed a capacity letter yesterday. And the notary? Graham asked. Same thing, Maris said. Find the notary in the state registry. Call them. Ask for their logbook entry for yesterday, if they are legit. They will have a thumbprint or a signature in their book. Maris looked at me. Ms. Ortiz, you need to provide us with anything that proves you were functional and unaware of this yesterday. We need to build a wall of evidence that contradicts that capacity letter. I reached for my phone. My hands were steady now. I was in a war room, and I had ammunition. I have something better than my word, I said. I have the conversation I had with them 40 minutes ago. I unlocked my phone and opened the call history. I tapped the entry for Dad Mom. 8:03 this morning, I said, showing the screen to Maris. Duration 4 minutes and 12 seconds. That proves you talked, Maris said. It doesn't prove what was said. I have the text that followed, I said. I opened the message thread. I scrolled to the message from my father. Sent at 8:09. We are doing this for your own good. The arrangement is necessary. Don't fight the guardianship. Guardianship, Maris read aloud. The word seemed to suck the oxygen out of the room. He used the word guardianship in writing. And this one, I said, scrolling down to Raina's message. Mom and Dad are just trying to save you. Stop fighting them. This establishes intent, Maris said, nodding slowly. They are admitting to an active takeover. If you were truly incapacitated, as the letter claims, they wouldn't be texting you to argue. You don't argue with a person who is in a psychotic break. You argue with a person who is fighting back. Maris straightened up. She looked at Graham. Upload screenshots of those texts to the case file immediately. Date and time, stamp them. She looked back at me. Ms. Ortiz, you are doing everything right, but you need to understand what is happening. They are not just stealing your money. They are building a legal cage around you. That capacity letter is the first bar of the cage. The power of attorney is the second. I won't let them close the door, I said. Good, Maris said. Because from this moment on, Crown Haven is not just your bank. We are your witness. I am converting this interaction from a service inquiry to a criminal investigation. She walked to the door and locked it. It was a symbolic gesture, but it felt significant. Graham, she said, get the camera footage from yesterday. I want to see who was standing at that counter. If it wasn't Vivian, I want to know who had the nerve to wear her face. I sat there, watching the two of them work. The red access denied on the screen no longer felt like a threat directed at me. Now, it felt like a shield. My parents had tried to use the system to crush me, to turn me into a non-person, a line item to be managed, but they had forgotten that the system works both ways. They had forgotten that paper trails are dangerous things when you are lying. Maris picked up the phone again. Security? This is Cole. Isolate the lobby video feed from yesterday. 1400 hours to 1500 hours. I am coming down to view it personally. She hung up and looked at me. Are you ready to see who stole your identity, Ms. Ortiz? Yes, I said. I am ready, but as I said it, a cold knot formed in my stomach, because I knew my family. And if they had sent someone to impersonate me, it wouldn't be a stranger. It would be someone who knew how to move like me, Someone who knew my mannerisms. I thought of the text from Raina. Mom and Dad are just trying to save you. And I thought of the new device added to my account. iPhone 15 Pro Max. Raina. I looked at Maris. I think I know what we are going to see. Let's go find out, Maris said. The security room was smaller than the office we had just left. A windowless box illuminated only by the cool blue glow of a bank of monitors covering the entire far wall. Maris Cole typed a password into the main console. Her keystrokes loud and deliberate in the stillness. I stood behind her. My arms crossed tight against my chest, not to keep warm, but to hold myself together. Graham Voss stood by the door, his notebook open, his pen poised like a scalpel. Okay, Maris said, her voice dropping to a hush. I am pulling the feed from yesterday, January 26th. Camera 4, lobby wide. Camera 6, teller station 2. She scrubbed the timeline bar at the bottom of the screen. The digital numbers whirred backward. 1430, 1415, 1410. Here, she said. 1414. I leaned in. On the screen, the automatic doors of the Crown Haven branch slid open. My breath hitched in my throat. Walked in first was my father. He was wearing his negotiation suit, a charcoal gray two-piece he usually reserved for closing real estate deals or meeting with city council members. He walked with that familiar, broad-shouldered stride, the projection of a man who owned the space he was entering. Right behind him was my mother. She was clutching her oversized Hermes bag, the one she bought after selling the lake house. She looked composed, her head high, scanning the room, but it was the third figure trailing them that made the hair on my arms stand up. It was a woman. She was wearing a trench coat that was belted tightly at the waist. She had oversized, dark tortoiseshell sunglasses covering half her face. She wore a black medical mask, the kind that had become less common lately but still wasn't entirely out of place. Her hair was dark, like mine, and pulled back into a severe, tight bun, exactly how I wore mine when I was working on a deadline. Pause, I said. Maris hit the spacebar. The image froze. That is the imposter, Graham said quietly. I stared at the pixelated stranger. It was terrifying. It was like looking at a distorted reflection in a funhouse mirror. The height was right. The hair color was right. The clothes were generic enough to be mine. Dark denim, boots, the coat. If you were a teller who had only seen my ID photo, you would not hesitate. It looks like me, I whispered. But it isn't me. How can you be sure from this angle? Maris asked. She wasn't challenging me. She was building the case. She needed me to articulate the difference. The posture, I said, pointing at the screen. Look at her shoulders. They are hunched forward. She is making herself smaller. I don't walk like that. And look at her hands. She is wringing them. She looks terrified. Or, I tilted my head. She looks like she is acting terrified. Like she is playing the role of the unstable daughter my mother told you about. Let's watch the interaction, Maris said. She pressed play. The trio approached the counter. My father did the talking. I could see his gestures. Expansive. Authoritative. He pointed to the woman beside him. He pointed to the papers on the counter. The woman in the sunglasses just stood there, nodding occasionally, looking down at her feet. That is teller station 2, Graham noted. That is Jennifer's station. Jennifer, Maris repeated the name with a dark undertone. The one who is sick today. On the screen, the teller, Jennifer, barely looked at the woman in the coat. She was focused entirely on my father. She took the thick folder of documents. She flipped through them. She stamped something. Then, she turned a signature pad toward the woman. Here it is, Maris said. The execution. The woman in the coat stepped forward. She picked up the digital stylus. She hesitated for a fraction of a second, a hesitation that might have looked like nerves to the teller. But to me, it looked like someone remembering which name they were supposed to sign. She leaned over the counter to sign the electronic pad. As she did, her coat sleeve rode up. It was a small movement, maybe 2 inches of skin exposed on her right forearm as she extended her hand. "Stop," I shouted. "Freeze it right there." Maris slammed her hand on the spacebar. The video froze again. The image was grainy, but the lighting in the bank was excellent. "Zoom in," I commanded. "On her right wrist, the underside." Maris used the mouse to draw a box around the woman's wrist and expanded it. The software smoothed out the pixels as best it could. There, stark against the pale skin of the inner wrist, was a black mark. It was small, maybe the size of a quarter. "Do you have any tattoos, Ms. Ortiz?" Maris asked, her eyes glued to the screen. "No," I said flatly. "I have 0 ink. I am a blood donor. I have never been under a needle for art in my life." I stared at the blurry shape on the screen. It wasn't just a blob. It had a distinct curve. It looked like a stylized wave, or maybe a crescent moon. "I know that tattoo," I said. The realization hit me like a physical blow to the stomach, harder than seeing the money vanish. "Oh my God. Who is it?" Graham asked. 6 months ago," I said, my voice sounding hollow in the small room. "My sister, Raina, went to Tulum for a girls' trip. She came back with a souvenir. She showed it to me at Thanksgiving. She said it was a symbol of flowing with the tide." I looked at Maris. "That is not a stranger. That is my sister, Raina. That is Raina wearing a wig and my old coat." The silence in the room was absolute. This wasn't just fraud. This was fratricide. My parents hadn't just hired an actor. They had weaponized my own sister against me. They had dressed her up in my identity and marched her into a bank to rob me. "Raina is 26, I said, forcing myself to speak through the nausea. "She is shorter than me, but in heels. She could pass. And with the mask." "And the teller," Graham interrupted, looking at his notes. "Jennifer knows Raina. Raina comes in here sometimes to deposit checks for your parents. Jennifer has seen her face." "So the teller didn't just miss the red flags," Maris said, her voice turning to ice. "She ignored them. She knew exactly who was standing in front of her." Maris stood up straight. She looked at the screen, then at me. The shift in her demeanor was palpable. She was no longer just a bank manager handling a dispute. She was a witness to a conspiracy. "Ms. Ortiz," Maris said, "we have crossed a threshold. This is no longer an internal banking error. This is criminal impersonation, grand larceny, and bank fraud involving an employee of this institution." She turned to Graham. "Lock down Jennifer's terminal. I want her audit trail for the last 6 months. I want to know every time she looked at Vivian's account or the parents' accounts, and check her personal accounts for any large cash deposits in the last 24 hours. Then she looked back at me. "I have a legal obligation to report this to the authorities immediately. We are calling the police." I took a deep breath. A part of me, the part that had been trained since birth to protect the family reputation, to hide the cracks, to never let the neighbors hear the shouting, wanted to beg her to stop. "Don't call the police. I can handle them. If you call the police, it's over." But then I looked at the screen again. I saw my father's hand resting on Raina's shoulder, a gesture of support for the daughter who was helping him steal from the daughter who had actually earned the money. "Call them," I said. I did not cry. I did not ask for a tissue. I felt a cold, hard resolve settling in my chest, displacing the fear. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder I had brought. "If we are calling the police," I said, placing the folder on the console desk, "then let's give them everything. I like your head, Ms. Ortiz," Maris said. She turned to the computer. "I am burning this footage to a secure drive right now. We are creating a chain of custody. Graham, you witness this." "Witnessing," Graham said. "Why is the chain of custody so important?" I asked. I knew, but I needed to hear the logic. I needed to focus on the procedure to keep from screaming. "Because," Maris said as she inserted a thumb drive, "if your parents are smart enough to fake a capacity letter and stage a body double, they are smart enough to hire a lawyer who will try to say this video was tampered with. They will say it's a deepfake. They will say the timestamp is wrong. We need to prove that from the moment this file left the server, it has been in sealed, documented hands. If we break the chain, the evidence dies. She clicked a series of prompts. Exporting, camera 04_lobby, verified. They walked in here, I said, watching the progress bar. They looked a teller in the eye. They signed my name, and they walked out. They thought you would crumble, Maris said. They thought you would see access denied and assume you were crazy. They were banking on your psychological collapse. Vivian, that is what the capacity letter was for, to make you doubt your own mind so you wouldn't trust your own eyes. They underestimated me, I said. Clearly, Maris said. The drive finished burning. She pulled it out and placed it into an evidence bag, sealing the top with a strip of red tape. She signed across the seal. She handed the pen to Graham. He signed. Now, Maris said, we wait for the officers, and while we wait, I want you to write down every single detail you can remember about that tattoo. Which wrist, what color, size, shape. If we can get a photo of Raina with that tattoo visible from her social media. We have them. I pulled out my phone. I didn't need to write it down. I opened Instagram. I went to Raina's profile. She blocked me this morning, I said, seeing the blank profile page. Of course she did. Do you have a mutual friend? Graham asked. Someone who follows her? My cousin, Sophia, I said. But if I ask Sophia for a screenshot, she might tell Raina. Don't ask, Maris said. Just use Sophia's phone if you can. Or, Graham, search the public web cache. See if her images are archived. I can do better, I said. I opened my own photo gallery. Thanksgiving. We took a group photo. I scrolled back to November. There we were, the happy family, my parents smiling, Raina holding a wine glass, her arm raised in a toast. I zoomed in. There it was, on her inner wrist, a small black wave. I have it, I said. I have the matching tattoo. Maris looked at the photo on my phone, then at the frozen image on the security screen. That, she said, is a match. They are going to say I gave her permission, I said, anticipating the next lie. They are going to say I was sick, so I asked Raina to go in for me because I couldn't leave the house. That doesn't explain the forged signature, Graham countered, or the fake doctor's note, or the fact that they transferred the money to a new account you don't control. If you had given permission, you would have just signed the POA yourself. And, Maris added, her voice dark, if you had given permission, why would they need to dress her up to look like you? Why the mask? Why the wig? You don't wear a disguise when you have permission. You wear a disguise when you are committing a heist. She was right. The disguise was the nail in the coffin. It proved consciousness of guilt. They knew what they were doing was illegal, and they took steps to hide it. Facts, I said, echoing the word I had used earlier. I am just putting facts on the table. And the scale is tipping, Maris said. She checked her watch. The police will be here in 10 minutes. I need you to prepare yourself. Vivian, once we file this report, your parents will be notified, not by a banker, but by a detective. The moment that happens, they will know the gig is up. And people like this, when they are cornered, they escalate. I know, I said. They already tried to take my money. They tried to take my sanity with that doctor's note. The only thing left for them to take is my freedom. They might try to force the guardianship, Graham warned. They might try to get a judge to sign an emergency order before the fraud investigation concludes. Let them try, I said. I looked at the evidence bag on the desk. I have a video of them committing a felony. If they drag me into court, I am not walking in as a defendant. I am walking in as a prosecutor. Maris nodded approval. Let's go back to the office. We need to print hard copies of everything. When the officers walk in, I want to hand them a case that is already solved. As we walked out of the security room, I felt a vibration in my pocket. I pulled out my phone. It was a text from my mother. Vivian, we are worried about you. Why aren't you answering the landline? We are coming over to your apartment to check on you. Please don't make us call the sheriff for a wellness check. A wellness check. It was another threat disguised as love. If I wasn't there, they would tell the police I was missing and endangered. They would use it to build the narrative of my instability. I showed the text to Maris. They are coming to my apartment, I said. Maris stopped in the hallway. You are not going back there. Not yet. No, I said. I am staying right here. Let them go to an empty apartment. Let them call the sheriff, because the sheriff is coming here. I typed a reply. My fingers steady. I am safe. I am running errands. I hit send. It was vague enough to be true, but calm enough to be infuriating. I walked back toward the glass office, the sound of my heels clicking on the tile floor. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the evidence, and I was about to be the most dangerous thing my family had ever encountered. A woman they couldn't control. The arrival of the police changed the molecular structure of the air inside the bank. Until that moment, the crisis had felt like a bureaucratic nightmare, a war fought with papers and pixels. But when two uniformed officers walked through the glass doors of Crown Haven, the reality shifted from civil dispute to criminal investigation. The silence in the lobby didn't just deepen, it solidified. Maris Cole met them at the entrance. She moved with the efficiency of a general greeting allies. She led them straight to the glass office where Graham Voss and I were waiting. The space suddenly felt very small. The first officer was a man named Darius Wynn. He was tall, with a shaved head, and a presence that seemed to absorb the frantic energy in the room. He didn't look at the computer screens. He looked at me. His eyes were assessing, not unkindly, but with a professional detachment that made me sit up straighter. The second officer was a woman, Leona Park. She was compact, sharp, with her hair pulled back in a regulation bun that reminded me, with a painful pang, of the disguise Raina had worn in the video footage. Officer Park was already holding a notepad, her pen poised. Ms. Ortiz? Officer Wynn asked. His voice was a deep rumble that vibrated in the small room. Yes, I said. I am Vivian Ortiz. We received a call regarding identity theft and attempted grand larceny, Wynn said. Manager Cole gave us the brief. But I need to hear it from you. Start from the beginning, and do not leave out the small stuff. I took a breath. I had rehearsed this in my head on the drive over, but saying it aloud to police officers made it feel like I was talking about someone else's life. This morning at 8 a.m., I tried to open my banking app, I began. It was locked, access denied. I called my parents. They didn't seem surprised. They told me they had stepped in to handle things. They said the family had to intervene. Officer Park was writing rapidly. Did they say why? They said I was unstable, I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. They said they were protecting me. But when I got here, I found out they had filed a power of attorney yesterday. I didn't sign it. They also filed a capacity letter from a doctor I have never met, claiming I had a psychotic break. Graham turned the monitor so the officers could see the documents. The power of attorney has a forged signature, Graham added, pointing to the screen, and the capacity letter has a fax header from the mother's real estate office, not a medical facility. Officer Wynn leaned in, squinting at the fax header. Amateur hour, he muttered. Go on. There is a wire transfer scheduled for 12:05 today, I continued, my voice trembling slightly. $465,000. It was going to clear in... I checked the wall clock. In less than 2 hours. We have a fraud hold on it, Maris interjected. The money is frozen. And the suspect description? Officer Park asked, looking up from her notes. We have video, Maris said, and we have a positive ID on the impersonator. Maris played the clip. The room went silent again as we watched the three figures at the counter. My father, my mother, and Raina, dressed as me. That is my sister, I said, pointing to the screen as the tattoo appeared. Raina Ortiz. She is wearing a wig and a mask. That is a matching tattoo she got with a friend in Tulum. I do not have any tattoos. Officer Wynn straightened up. Crossing his thick arms over his chest, he looked at me, then at the screen, then back at me. So we have parents and a sibling, Wynne said, all conspiring to defraud the oldest daughter. That is a heavy accusation, Ms. Ortiz. Once we write this down, it becomes the state versus your family. There is no unringing this bell. I know, I said, but they didn't just try to steal the money. They tried to steal my life. Officer Park tapped her pen against her notebook. Graham stared at the floor. My phone buzzed. He replied, I said. Read it, Wynne ordered. He says, I read, my voice steadying into a flat monotone. It had to be done. Vivian, family comes first. We are securing the assets until you are well. Do not make this ugly. We will discuss the allowance structure tonight. Allowance structure, Leona Park repeated, shaking her head. He is talking about a grown woman's trust fund like it is pocket money for a teenager. That is admission of control, Wynne said. He admits he locked it. He admits he is holding the assets, and he implies a condition, until you are well, which ties back to the fraudulent capacity letter. Officer Park, Wynne said, turning to his partner. I want that text conversation photographed and logged. Ms. Cole, I need you to preserve that metadata. Already done, Maris said. We are archiving all communications. Officer Park stepped toward Graham's desk. Let's look at the ledger, she said. If they scheduled a transfer for $465,000, that is a huge red flag for the banking software. Usually, criminals test the waters first. What do you mean? I asked. They send a smaller amount, Park explained, to make sure the receiving account works, to make sure the wire instructions are correct, to see if you get a notification. Graham's eyes widened. I only looked at the pending wire. I didn't look at the cleared transactions for yesterday, he typed furiously. The keyboard clatter was sharp and urgent. Here, Graham said. Yesterday, 3:45 p.m. and 4:10 p.m. I leaned in, my stomach churning. 2 transfers, Graham read. $7,500 and $12,500. $20,000, I whispered. They already took $20,000. Where did it go? Wynne asked, leaning over the desk. Same beneficiary as the big wire, Graham said. Account name is Ortiz Household Bridge, Bank of America. That sounds like a shell account, Park said. Household Bridge. It implies it is for your benefit, but it is controlled by them. Look at the memo line, Graham said quietly. He pointed to the text field next to the $12,000 transfer. I looked. The text was typed in all caps. Temporary management. While beneficiary is impaired. I felt tears prick the corners of my eyes. Hot and sudden. It wasn't the money. $20,000 was a lot. But it wasn't the loss of the currency that hurt. It was the label. Impaired. They had typed that word into a permanent banking record. They had branded me. Any auditor, any judge, any future banker looking at this history would see that note and wonder if I was truly broken. That is malice, Officer Wynne said softly. That is not just theft. That is constructing a narrative. They are building a paper trail to justify the guardianship before they even file for it. This is classic financial exploitation, Officer Park said, writing furiously. They test the system with amounts under $10,000 to avoid certain automatic federal reporting triggers. Although the second one went over, they label it with caregiving language to make it look like authorized management. If you hadn't come in today, that $465,000 would have cleared at noon, and by 1 p.m., they would have moved it again to a third account. Organization, Wynne said. Scripts, disguises, test transfers. This isn't a family dispute, Ms. Ortiz. This is a racketeering enterprise operating out of a living room. Can we get the $20,000 back? I asked. We can recall the wires, Graham said. But since they have already cleared, it depends on whether the money is still in the receiving account. If they withdrew it as cash or moved it, it becomes a civil recovery issue. Or criminal restitution, Wynne corrected. When we arrest them, the court can order repayment, but right now, we need to stop the bleeding. The bleeding has stopped, Maris said firmly. The fraud hold is absolute. Just then, my pocket vibrated again. I jumped. Is it him? Wynne asked. I pulled out my phone. It wasn't a text. It was an email notification. No, I said. It is from the bank. From Crown Haven. What does it say? Graham asked, looking at his screen. I don't see a new alert yet. It just hit my personal email, I said. I opened the message. The subject line was, Profile Update Confirmation. I read the body of the email, and the floor seemed to drop out from under me. Dear customer, your primary mailing address has been successfully updated. All future paper statements and legal notices will be sent to the new address on file. They changed my address, I said, looking up at Maris. Right now, while we are sitting here, Graham refreshed his screen. There it is, he said. It just populated 1232 Elm Street. That is their house, I said. That is my parents' house. Why would they do that? Officer Park asked. They already have the digital access. They are cutting the lines, Maris said, her voice grim. When we put the fraud hold on, the system generates a physical letter. It is a legal requirement. A hard copy notice is mailed to the address on record saying the account is frozen for investigation. They know that letter is coming. They want to intercept it, I realized. They want to get the mail so I don't see the fraud notice. They think I'm still at home, confused. They want to hide the fact that the bank is onto them. Or, Wynne said, his eyes narrowing, they are preparing to file for the guardianship in court. Court notices are mailed. If all your mail goes to their house, you will never know you are being sued until the judge bangs the gavel. They are blinding me, I said. They are trying to put me in a dark room so I can't see the walls closing in. Maris turned to her keyboard. I am overriding the change, she said. I am setting the address to branch pickup only. Nothing goes to Elm Street. Nothing goes to your apartment. If they want a piece of paper, they have to come through me. This is an escalation, Officer Wynne said. They are active right now. They are logged in somewhere, making changes. They must be using the Reina device, Graham said. The iPhone 15 we saw earlier. Officer Park, Wynne said. Get a subpoena ready for the IP logs. I want to know exactly where that phone is pinging. If they are at the parents' house, we know where to go. But if they are mobile, they might be coming here, I said. The thought struck me with sudden clarity. If they see the address change gets reverted, or if they see the transfer doesn't clear at noon, they will know something is wrong. They will come to the branch to fix it. Let them come, Wynne said, a dark smile touching his lips. We will be waiting. No, I said. You don't understand. My father can talk his way out of anything. He will have a story. He will say I am off my meds. He will have that fake doctor on the phone. Ms. Ortiz, Officer Park said, stepping closer to me. He can talk to the teller. He can talk to the manager, but he cannot talk his way past the badge, not with the evidence we have on this table. They are not stopping, I said, looking at the email on my phone again. They are moving fast. They took 20,000 yesterday. They changed the address today. They are erasing me, piece by piece. Then we need to move faster, Maris said. Graham, print the full audit trail. Every click, every login, every change they made in the last 24 hours. We are giving the officers a map of the crime. I looked at the clock. It was 9:45. The wire was scheduled for 12:05. But the war wasn't about the timeline anymore. It was about the perimeter. They had breached the outer walls. They were inside the system. And now, thanks to the address change, I knew they were watching the account in real time. They know, I said. They might not know the police are here, but they know someone is fighting back. You don't change an address unless you are afraid of what is being sent. Panic, Wynne said. They are panicking, and panicking criminals make mistakes. I just hope, I said, clutching my phone, that I am not the mistake they try to erase next. Officer Wynne put a hand on his belt. Not on my watch, Ms. Ortiz, not on my watch. But even with his reassurance, I couldn't shake the feeling of the red line on the screen. Access denied. It wasn't just a banking error, it was a prediction. If I lost this, I would be denied access to everything: my home, my future, my own name. "What do we do now?" I asked. "Now," Maris said, hitting the print button. "We prepare for the confrontation, because if I know men like your father, when the digital door slams shut, he will try to kick down the physical one." The email notification on my phone screen glowed like a radioactive warning label. Address updated. It was a simple automated message, but it carried a terrifying implication. We were not just fighting a static crime, we were fighting a live opponent. "How did they do that?" I asked, my voice rising. "You said the account was frozen. You said it was a code red." Maris Cole was already typing, her fingers striking the keys with the force of a pianist playing a crescendo. "There is a latency window," she said through gritted teeth. "When we initiate a fraud hold, it hits the transactional servers first to stop the money. It takes anywhere from 90 seconds to 3 minutes to propagate to the profile management servers. It is a known system vulnerability, but usually, nobody moves that fast." "They found the window," Graham said, his face pale. "They must have been logged in, waiting for the wire to hit a snag, and the second they saw the pending status stall, they executed the address change." "Why?" Officer Park asked. "Why change the address if they can't move the money?" "To blind me," I said. I felt a cold realization settling over me, heavier than the air conditioning. When a trust account gets locked, the bank sends a physical letter, a hard copy notice. It details the fraud suspicion. It gives the account holder instructions on how to reclaim access. If that letter goes to my apartment, I see it. I take it to a lawyer. But if it goes to their house, they intercept it, Officer Wynne finished. "They hide the evidence. They keep you thinking it is just a glitch while they work on the legal angle." "Maris," I said, "change it back, right now." "I am doing more than that," Maris said. She hit the enter key with a final, decisive snap. "I am not just reverting the address. I am placing a hard lock on all profile data: address, email, phone number, beneficiaries. From this second forward, no changes can be made online. No changes can be made over the phone. If someone wants to change a single digit of your zip code, they have to stand in this office, present a government-issued ID, and provide a thumbprint. The system is secure," Graham confirmed, looking at his own screen. "The new address request has been voided. The profile is reverted to your apartment on 4th Street. The lock is active." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding, but the relief was short-lived. My phone buzzed again. It wasn't an email this time. It was a text message. I looked at the sender ID. "Mom." My stomach twisted. I didn't want to open it. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. But I was in a police investigation now. The phone was evidence. I opened the message. "Vivian, stop playing games. We know you are interfering with the transfer. If you continue to resist the family arrangement, we will be forced to present the capacity letter to the circuit court this afternoon. We will file for full emergency guardianship. Do not make us declare you legally incompetent in public. It will ruin your career. Just let the transfer clear." I read it out loud. My voice shook, not with fear, but with a sudden, overwhelming rage. It was so naked, so transactional. "That is not a mother speaking," Officer Wynne said, his voice low and dangerous. "That is a extortionist. She is threatening my career," I said. "She knows I work in strategic consulting. If I have a public record declaring me mentally incompetent, I lose my security clearance. I lose my clients. I lose everything." "That is coercion," Wynne said. He pointed to Officer Park. "Log that. That text message changes the nature of the complaint. They are using the legal system as a weapon of terror. They are saying, 'Give us the money or we will destroy your reputation.' It creates a catch-22, Officer Park observed, writing in her notebook. "If you fight them, they smear you in court. If you don't fight them, they take the money. They are counting on you being too afraid of the stigma to resist. I am not afraid, I said. I am furious. Good, Officer Park said. Use that. If they are going to threaten you with a competency hearing, we need to build a counter packet right now. We need to prove that you are not only sane but high-functioning. What do you need? I asked. Proof of life, Park said. Proof of stability. If they have a fake doctor saying you were psychotic on Monday, we need proof you were rational on Monday. Do you have work logs? I work for Northline Strategy Group, I said. We bill by the quarter hour. Everything is tracked. My keycard logs every time I enter the building. My server logs every email I send. Get them, Park said. Right now, log in and export your activity for the last 48 hours. A judge might question a witness, but a judge never questions a server timestamp. I opened my laptop. I connected to the bank's guest Wi-Fi. My hands flew across the keyboard. I logged into the Northline portal. Welcome, Vivian Ortiz, Senior Strategist. I navigated to the Compliance tab. I pulled the building access report first. January 26th. Entry, 8:32 a.m. Exit, 12:15 p.m. Entry, 1 p.m. Exit, 6:45 p.m. Here, I said, turning the laptop so they could see. Yesterday, I was in the office building all day. The only gap is 45 minutes for lunch. The bank video shows the imposter here at 2:15. My log shows me badging into the elevator on the 12th floor at 2:15 exactly. Perfect, Graham said. You cannot be in two places at once. Physics is your alibi. I didn't stop there. I pulled my billing sheets. January 26th, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., client strategy call, attendees, 4, notes attached. I was leading a conference call, I said. I have 4 witnesses who can testify I was articulate, prepared, and managing a multi-million-dollar budget strategy at the exact moment my mother claims I was having a psychotic break. Print it, Maris commanded. We are building a wall of paper they cannot climb over. Graham took the files from my thumb drive and sent them to the printer. The rhythmic wurchk of the pages coming out sounded like a weapon being loaded. There is one more thing, Maris said. We need to secure the human element. If they call customer service pretending to be you, they might have enough data to pass the standard verification. Mother's maiden name, first pet, high school mascot. They know all of that because they were there. They know everything, I said. My mother filled out the forms for my first bank account. She knows the answers to security questions I have forgotten. We are bypassing that, Maris said. We are setting an emergency phrase. It is a verbal password that overrides everything else. If someone calls claiming to be Vivian Ortiz, the operator will ask for this phrase. If they don't know it, the call is terminated and security is dispatched. No hints, no second chances. Pick something, Graham said. Something they would never guess. Nothing related to your birthday, your address, or your favorites. I thought for a moment. I needed something that belonged only to me, something from the life I had built away from them. Blue heron, I said. I go kayaking on the weekends. I always look for them. They don't know that. They think nature is dirty. Blue heron, Graham repeated. He typed it into the highest security field on the screen. It is set. From this moment on, you are not Vivian Ortiz to this bank. You are Blue Heron. Without those words, nobody touches this trust. The layers of protection were settling into place, but instead of feeling safer, I felt a creeping dread. The sophistication of their attack was gnawing at me. Officer, I said to Wynne, there is something else. The ID the imposter used. What about it? Wynne asked. The teller accepted it, I said. That means it had to be a high-quality fake. Or, I paused, my mind racing back to a memory from 3 years ago. Or it was real. You said you had your ID, Wynne said. I have my current license, I said. But 3 years ago, I lost my passport card. I looked everywhere for it. My mother told me I was careless. She helped me look for it. We never found it. I had to report it lost and get a new one. You think she found it? Park asked. I think she never lost it, I said. I think she took it, and I think that is what Raina showed the teller. A real, government-issued passport card with my name and my face. If Raina wore a mask and sunglasses, the photo on the card would be close enough. The teller wouldn't question a valid federal ID. That implies premeditation on a massive scale, Wynne said. Holding on to a stolen ID for 3 years? Waiting for the trust fund to hit a certain value? The fund vests fully when I turn 35, I said. That is in 3 years, but right now, the balance is high enough to buy a house, or a boat, or whatever they are trying to buy. This wasn't an impulse, Maris said, looking at the printer tray full of evidence. This was a harvest. They have been waiting for you to grow the corn so they could cut it down. The cruelty of it made me feel hollow. My parents hadn't just betrayed me, they had farmed me. They had watched me work, watched me save, watched me build my credit, all while holding the knife behind their backs, waiting for the pig to be fat enough for the slaughter. They are going to come here, I said again. I can feel it. The text message was the last warning. If I don't reply, they will assume I am calling their bluff. They will come to the bank to bully the manager into releasing the wire. Let them come, Wynne said. We are ready. You don't understand, I said. My father, he has a way of twisting reality. He will walk in here and he won't look like a criminal. He will look like a concerned patriarch. He will cry. He will show you the medical records. He will make you doubt me. He can cry all he wants, Maris said. Tears don't override a federal fraud hold. And he can show us all the papers he has, Officer Park said. But unless he can explain why his daughter is sitting in the back office with a police officer while his other daughter is wearing a wig on camera, he is not walking out of here with money, he is walking out in cuffs. I wanted to believe them, but 40 years of conditioning is hard to break. I still felt like the child who had broken a vase, waiting for the punishment. Then it happened. The sound was soft, a melodic two-tone chime that signaled the front door opening. Ding-dong. In the silence of the back office, it sounded like a gunshot. Maris looked at the monitor showing the lobby feed. I looked at the monitor too. My heart hammered against my ribs like a fist. Walking through the door was my father. He was wearing the same suit he wore in the video yesterday. He looked impeccable. He looked confident. Behind him was my mother. She was wearing a beige cardigan and clutching a folder that looked identical to the one they had yesterday. She looked worried, her brow furrowed in a performance of maternal anxiety that was Oscar-worthy, and trailing behind them, looking sullen and nervous. Was Raina? She wasn't wearing the wig today. She was wearing a sundress. She looked like the innocent little sister. They had brought the whole cast. They are here, Graham whispered. Showtime, Officer Wynne said. He unclipped the radio from his belt. Dispatch, this is Unit 4 Alpha. Suspects are on scene at the Crown Haven branch. 3 individuals. Stand by for potential escalation. Do not go out there yet, Maris said to the officers. Let them approach the counter. Let them commit to the act. I want them to ask for the money. I want the attempt to be recorded on today's audio. I will handle the greet, Maris said. She stood up, smoothing her blazer. She looked like a shark in a tailored suit. Graham, stay here with Vivian and the officers. Keep the door locked until I give the signal. What is the signal? Graham asked. When I say the words, access denied, Maris said. She opened the door and stepped out into the hallway. Closing it firmly behind her, I watched on the monitor as she walked into the lobby. I saw my father spot her. I saw his face light up with that fake, charming smile he used on waitresses and clients. He extended his hand. He thought he was about to charm a manager into overriding a glitch. He had no idea he was shaking hands with the executioner. He looks so normal, I whispered to Officer Park. Look at him. He looks like a good dad. That, Park said softly, is exactly why he is dangerous. The devil doesn't come with horns. Vivian, he comes with a smile and a power of attorney. I watched my mother place the folder on the counter. I knew what was inside. The fake capacity letter, the lies about my sanity. The weapon they were going to use to bury me. But this time, I had a counter packet. I had the Northline logs. I had the video. I had the tattoo photo. And I had 2 police officers standing 2 feet away from me, for the first time all morning. The fear began to recede, replaced by a cold, hard anticipation. Go ahead, Dad. I thought, tell them I am crazy. Tell them I am incompetent. Dig the hole a little deeper. Maris leaned over the counter. I couldn't hear what she was saying through the monitor. But I saw my father's smile falter. I saw my mother stiffen. I saw Raina take a half step back, her eyes darting toward the door. The trap was set, and they had just walked right into the center of it. From the threshold of the glass office, I watched my parents transform the bank lobby into a theater. It was a performance I had seen 1,000 times in smaller venues, restaurants where the service was too slow, school principal offices where I had been bullied, neighborhood association meetings where someone dared to disagree with my father about a fence line. But this was their Broadway debut. My father, Hector Ortiz, approached the counter not like a man accused of fraud, but like a shareholder demanding an audit. He placed his hands on the marble countertop, fingers splayed wide, claiming the territory. He did not look at the tellers. He looked through them. I am here to authorize the release of the pending wire, he announced, his voice booming just loud enough to turn heads in the waiting area. My name is Hector Ortiz. I am the legal proxy for this account. We have encountered a system error that is impeding critical family funds. Maris Cole stood her ground on the other side of the counter. She did not flinch. She did not smile. She looked at him with the blank, terrifying neutrality of a surveillance camera lens. Mr. Ortiz, Maris said, her voice clipped and precise. There is no system error. The wire transfer has been manually stopped. Stopped? My father's laugh was a sharp bark of incredulity. By whom? My daughter? I have a power of attorney that supersedes her access. She is currently medically compromised. If you are taking instructions from a woman who is in the middle of a psychiatric episode, you are liable for negligence. The power of attorney is under review, Maris said. Review? My mother, Elena, stepped forward. She played her part perfectly. She wasn't aggressive like my father. She was soft, cloying, radiating a poisonous concern. She reached into her bag and pulled out the folder. We have the medical certification right here. Dear Doctor, Thorne was very clear. Vivian is confused. She is paranoid. We are just trying to protect her assets before she gives them away to some internet scammer. Please, we just want to help our child. It was masterful, to the 3 other customers sitting in the lobby chairs. My parents looked like saints burdened with a difficult child. I felt a surge of nausea, the old familiar shame of being the problem they had to solve. Then I looked at Raina. My sister was standing 5 feet behind them, leaning against a pillar. She held her phone up. The camera lens pointed directly at the interaction. She wasn't just recording, she was framing the narrative. If this went south, they would edit the clip, cut out the fraud, and post a video titled, Bank Refuses to Help Elderly Parents with Sick Daughter. She was ready to destroy me on TikTok before the police even finished their report. The account is under a fraud hold, Maris said, raising her voice slightly to cut through my mother's performance. There will be no transactions today. Access is denied. Those were the words, the signal. Officer Darius Wynn opened the door of the glass office. He stepped out, his boots heavy on the tile floor. Officer Leona Park followed him, and then, taking a breath that felt like inhaling broken glass, I stepped out behind them. The moment my father saw the uniforms, his posture didn't collapse. It stiffened. He didn't look afraid. He looked insulted. He looked like a man who was about to ask for the officer's badge numbers. Good, my father said, turning to Wynn. Officers, perhaps you can explain the law to this manager. I have a notarized legal document. This bank is holding my family's property hostage. Step away from the counter, sir. Officer Wynn said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a weight that made the air in the room feel dense. I will not step away, my father spat. I am the victim here. My daughter. He pointed a finger toward the back of the room, not yet realizing I was standing there. My daughter is unwell. She is likely manic right now. She needs to be in a facility, not directing banking operations. Your daughter is standing right behind you, Officer Park said. My father spun around. My mother turned with him. For a second, the mask slipped. I saw the shock in their eyes. They hadn't expected me to be physically present. They thought I was cowering in my apartment, or maybe they thought I was already broken, but the shock lasted only a heartbeat. Then, the training kicked in. "Vivian!" my mother cried out. It was a theatrical wail. She took a step toward me, her arms opening as if to embrace me. "Oh, thank God you are safe. We were so worried. You stopped answering your phone. We thought you had hurt yourself." She was trying to hug me. She was trying to physically reclaim me in front of the police, to turn me back into the child she could smother. "Do not touch me," I said. My voice was not loud. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I spoke with the cold, hard clarity of a stranger. My mother stopped, her hands hovering in the air. She looked at the officers, her eyes wide and brimming with fake tears. "You see? You see how she is? She is hostile. It is the paranoia. The doctor said this would happen." "The doctor," Officer Wynne repeated, stepping between my mother and me. "You mean Dr. Eris Thorne?" "Yes," my father said, seizing the thread. "A respected specialist. He evaluated her." "We checked Dr. Thorne," Officer Wynne said. "We called his office 10 minutes ago. He has never heard of Vivian Ortiz. He was playing golf yesterday at 2 p.m., at the exact time your document claims he was examining her." The silence that followed was absolute. My father's mouth opened slightly, then closed. He blinked. It was the first crack in the armor. "That is a clerical error," my father said quickly, dismissing the felony with a wave of his hand. "His office is disorganized. That is irrelevant. The power of attorney is notarized. And the notary," Officer Park added, flipping open her notebook. "We called her too. She says she didn't notarize anything for you yesterday. She says her stamp was stolen from her car last week." "Lies," my mother hissed. The sweetness was gone now. Her face was sharp, angular, ugly. "You are twisting things. Vivian has put you up to this. She is a manipulator. She is lying to you." "Mrs. Ortiz," Officer Park said, stepping forward, "we are not relying on what your daughter says. We are relying on what we see." Park pointed to the black dome camera on the ceiling above the teller line. "We have the video from yesterday," Park said. "We watched you walk in here. We watched you stand at this counter, and we watched the woman you brought with you." My father's eyes darted to the camera, then back to Park. "So, we brought Vivian. She was having a lucid moment. She signed the papers." "No," I said. I stepped past Officer Wynne so I was standing face to face with my father. "You didn't bring me. You brought Raina." I looked at my sister. Raina was still holding her phone, but she had lowered it about 6 inches. Her face had gone pale. She wasn't filming anymore. She was realizing that she wasn't the director of this scene. She was a suspect in it. "Raina?" my father scoffed, forcing a laugh that sounded like grinding gears. "That is ridiculous. Raina was at home." "The woman in the video was wearing a wig," Officer Park said. "She was wearing a mask, and she was wearing sunglasses. Why would Vivian need a disguise to enter her own bank? Mr. Ortiz?" "Maybe she didn't want to be recognized," my mother shouted. She turned to the customers sitting in the lobby, addressing them like a jury. "My daughter is ashamed. She has debt. She has problems. She didn't want people to know she was signing over control. She is ashamed." It was a desperate, vicious pivot. She was trying to humiliate me into submission. She was banking on the fact that I would do anything to stop a public scene. She thought I would fold just to make her stop screaming, but she forgot one thing. I wasn't the one with something to hide anymore. "I have 0 debt," I said. my voice cutting through her shouting. "And I have $480,000 in this account, or I did, until you tried to wire it to a shell company." "It is for the family," my father roared. Dropping the pretense of the medical issue, the veins in his neck bulged. "It is family money. We built this foundation. We raised you. You think that money belongs to you just because your grandmother put your name on it? Who took care of her? Who drove her to appointments? We did. That money is ours by right." There it was, the truth. It wasn't about protection. It wasn't about mental health. It was about entitlement. It was about the fact that they believed I was property, and therefore, anything I owned was theirs. "That is an admission," Officer Wynne said quietly to Park. "Mr. Ortiz," Maris Cole said. She stepped out from behind the counter. She held a piece of paper in her hand. "You are disrupting business operations. You are harassing a client. And you are attempting to conduct a transaction on a flagged account." She held the paper out, but she didn't hand it to him. She just showed it. "This is a formal trespass notice," Maris said. "You, Elena Ortiz, and Reina Ortiz are no longer welcome on Crown Haven property. If you do not leave these premises in 10 seconds, you will be arrested for criminal trespassing." My father stared at her. His face turned a deep, mottled red. He looked at the officers, then at the camera, then at me. He realized he had lost the room. He realized the handcuffs were the next step if he didn't de-escalate. "Fine," he spat. He adjusted his jacket, trying to regain some shred of dignity. "We are leaving, but this isn't over. Vivian, you will hear from our lawyer. You will be in court by Monday." "I will be waiting," I said. He turned sharply, grabbing my mother by the elbow. "Come on, Elena. This bank is a joke. We will file a complaint with the regulatory board." My mother shot me one last look, a look of pure, distilled hatred, and turned to follow him. Reina was the last to move. She shoved her phone into her purse. She looked at me, and for a second, I saw fear in her eyes. Real fear. She knew she was the weak link. She knew she was the one who had worn the wig. "Reina," I said. She didn't answer. She turned to run after our parents, desperate to get out of the line of sight of the police. As she turned, her purse strap caught on her shoulder. She reached up to adjust it. It was a jerky, nervous movement. Her arm flew up. The sleeve of her sundress was loose. As she raised her arm, the fabric slid down toward her elbow. Time seemed to slow down. I saw it. Officer Park saw it. Maris saw it. Even the teller at the next window saw it. On the pale inner skin of her right wrist, clearly visible in the bright lobby lights, was a small, black tattoo, a stylized wave, a crescent moon. It was exactly the same mark we had seen on the grainy security footage 10 minutes ago. "Stop," Officer Park commanded. Reina froze. Her arm was still up. She saw where we were looking. She yanked her sleeve down, covering the mark, but it was too late. The air had been sucked out of the room. "That is the mark," Officer Park said, her voice ringing with finality. "That is a positive identification." My father stopped at the door. He looked back. He saw Reina clutching her wrist. He saw the police staring at it. He didn't step in to help her. He didn't rush back to defend his youngest child. He looked at her with a flash of annoyance, as if she had been clumsy, as if getting caught was her failure, not his. "Keep walking, Reina," he barked. "I said stop," Officer Park repeated, her hand resting on her belt. "We have probable cause. We have a visual match." "We are leaving," my father shouted. Pushing the glass door open, "You trespassed us. We are complying." He grabbed Reina's other arm and practically dragged her through the door. My mother followed, looking back over her shoulder with eyes that promised retribution. The door swung shut behind them. The chime sounded again. Ding-dong. The silence rushed back into the lobby. But this time, it felt different. It wasn't the silence of a bank. It was the silence of a battlefield after the artillery has stopped firing. "We have them," Officer Wynne said. "We have the footage of the confrontation. We have the admission of family money, and we have a visual on the tattoo in real time with witnesses. Why did you let them go? I asked, my voice trembling. You could have arrested them right there. If we arrest them for trespassing, they bond out in an hour. Officer Wynne explained. It's a misdemeanor. They go home. They destroy evidence. They lawyer up. But now? He smiled, a grim, satisfied expression. Now we have probable cause for a felony warrant. We go to a judge. We get a search warrant for their house. We get the wig. We get the computer they used to forge the documents. We get the phone Raina was using. We build the iron cage, Officer Park said. And then we drop it on them. I looked at the door where my family had just vanished. I realized that my father had been right about one thing. This wasn't over. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of what they would do next. I was thinking about what I was going to do next. Maris, I said, turning to the manager, print everything, every word they said, every second of video. It is already done, Maris said. Good, I said, because I have a feeling my sister is going to be the first one to crack. Did you see her face? She was terrified. She should be, Officer Park said. She just realized her parents are willing to use her as a human shield. I looked down at my own wrist. It was bare. No ink, no mark, just skin. They marked her, I whispered. And now that Mark is going to bring them all down. I took a deep breath. The air conditioning felt cold again, but it was a clarifying cold. Officer Wynne, I said, I want to file for a restraining order, immediately. We can start that paperwork right now, Wynne said. And, I added, looking at the empty lobby, I want to change all my beneficiaries. Today, right now. Maris nodded. We can do that in my office. I walked back toward the glass room. I had lost a family today. I knew that. The bridge was burned. The ashes were scattered. But as I looked at the red access denied screen on Graham's computer, I realized I had gained something much more valuable. I had gained access to myself. And nobody, not even Hector Ortiz, was ever going to revoke that again. The heavy glass door of the branch was still swinging shut, the chime of their exit fading into the air, when the phone on Graham Voss's desk let out a sharp, urgent trill. It was not the standard ringtone. It was the specific, piercing alert reserved for internal high-priority lines. Maris Cole snatched the receiver up before the second ring. She listened for a split second, her eyes widening, and then she hit the speaker button. I have trust compliance on the line, Maris announced, her voice cutting through the tension in the room like a scalpel. Officer Wynne, hold them. Do not let them leave the parking lot. Officer Wynne moved instantly. He didn't run, but he strode toward the vestibule with a speed that belied his size, catching the door before it fully latched. Through the glass partition, I saw him step outside, raising a hand to stop my father, who was already reaching for his car keys. I saw my father turn, his face twisting in outrage. But Wynne was immovable. He was detaining them for identification regarding the trespass notice, buying us the seconds we needed, inside the office. The voice on the speakerphone was crisp, authoritative, and terrifyingly calm. This is Kendra Holt, Senior Forensic Analyst for Crown Haven Trust Compliance in Charlotte, the voice said. I am looking at the incident report regarding the Ortiz Family Trust. Is the beneficiary, Vivian Ortiz, present in the room? I am here, I said, leaning over the desk. My hands were flat on the cool wood, grounding me. Ms. Ortiz, Kendra said, I need you to answer one question for the record, and I need you to be absolutely certain. In the last 30 days, have you signed any physical document, digital form, or tablet interface that granted power of attorney to Hector or Elena Ortiz? No, I said instantly. Not in 30 days, not in 30 years. Thank you, Kendra said. That confirms the findings of the digital autopsy. Autopsy? Graham asked. You mean the document analysis? I mean autopsy, Kendra said. Because this document is dead on arrival. We just finished the metadata scrape of the PDF file that was uploaded to our system yesterday at 2:15 in the afternoon. We know they faxed it, I said. We saw the header from my mother's real estate office. That is what they wanted you to see, Kendra corrected. The fax header is a visual artifact. It is part of the image layer, but the file itself? It wasn't created by a fax machine. If it had been a true fax, the file structure would show a specific encoding from the scanner at the receiving end. This file does not have that. What does it have? Maris asked. It has an edit history, Kendra said. This document was not scanned from a piece of paper. It was exported directly from a word processing program. They took a digital template, pasted a JPEG of your signature onto it, and then used the Save as PDF function. They added the fax header manually as a text box to make it look like a transmission. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. It was so calculated. They hadn't just forged a signature, they had engineered a fake reality. And here's the mistake, Kendra continued. When you export a file from a home computer, the software stamps the file with the author tag of the registered user. They forgot to scrub the metadata. Who is the author? Graham asked. The author field reads, Raina Station, Kendra said, spelling it out. RainaStation. The room went silent. The name hung in the air. Neon bright and undeniable. Raina Station. It sounded like a username for a gaming console or a teenager's laptop. It did not sound like a lawyer's office or a doctor's secure terminal. That is her laptop, I whispered. Raina has a MacBook. She calls it that. It shows up on the Wi-Fi network at Christmas. We have more, Kendra said. Relentless. We ran a device fingerprint analysis on the upload packet. The IP address used to upload this file matches a device that has previously logged into our system to check a student checking account under the name Raina Ortiz. The device ID is identical. The digital fingerprint is a 100% match. She used her own computer, Maris said, shaking her head in disbelief. She dressed up as you, walked into the bank, and then went home and used her own laptop to upload the forgery. She thought she was anonymous, I said. She thought because she was using my mother's office fax number on the header, we wouldn't look at the computer code. Ms. Cole, Kendra said, this is no longer a dispute. This is federal wire fraud with a verifiable digital trail leading to a specific device and a specific suspect. I am flagging this account for immediate law enforcement release. You have permission to share this data with the officers on scene. Maris looked at Graham. Print the metadata report. Now. Graham hit the button. The printer whirred. Let's go, Maris said. She grabbed the fresh sheets of paper, still warm from the machine. I followed her out of the office, past the teller line, and toward the front doors. Outside, in the humid Florida air, the scene was unraveling. Officer Wynn had my family stopped near the handicap parking spots. My father was gesturing wildly, his face a mask of indignation. My mother was standing with her arms crossed, looking at the pavement, and Raina was vibrating. She was the first to see us come out. Her eyes locked onto the papers in Maris's hand. She took a step back, bumping into the fender of my father's car. We are leaving, my father shouted as we approached. You have our IDs. You have the trespass warning. We are done here. You are not done, Mr. Ortiz, Officer Leona Park said, stepping up to flank her partner. She took the papers from Maris. She scanned the top sheet, her eyebrows lifting. What is this? My father demanded. More lies? It is a metadata report, Officer Park said, holding the paper up so Raina could see it. Do you know what metadata is, Raina? Raina didn't answer. She was breathing fast, shallow gasps. Her hands were clenching and unclenching at her sides. It is the digital footprint you leave behind when you create a file, Park explained, her voice deceptively conversational. Like the power of attorney document you submitted. We know it wasn't scanned at a law office. We know it was created on a computer with the user profile Raina Station. Raina flinched as if she had been slapped. That doesn't prove anything, Raina blurted out. Her voice was too high, too loud. It cracked with panic. Anyone could name their computer that. It is a common name. You can't prove it was me. It is a common name? Officer Wynne asked, raising an eyebrow. Raina Station? Is that common? Yes, no, someone could have hacked me. Raina was spiraling. She was talking too fast, throwing words out like sandbags to stop a flood. Vivian probably did it. She knows my passwords. She framed me. Raina, I said. I stood on the sidewalk, 10 feet away from her. Stop. Just stop. You did this, she screamed at me, tears starting to stream down her face. It was the reaction of a child caught stealing from the cookie jar, magnified to a felony level. You are jealous because Mom and Dad rely on me. You are trying to ruin my life. The device fingerprint matches your previous logins. Officer Park cut in, her voice hard. We have the MAC address of your laptop. Raina, it matches the device that uploaded the forged document. That is not a coincidence. That is a mathematical certainty. My father stepped between Raina and the officer. Don't say another word. Raina, he commanded. They are trying to trick you. We don't need to trick her, Officer Park said. The file is speaking for itself. We have the location, the device, the time, and the user profile, and we have the video of her wearing the wig. Officer Wynne looked at my father. Mr. Ortiz, here is the situation. We have enough right now to detain all of you for questioning regarding identity theft and fraud. You can get in your car and leave, and I guarantee you that by tomorrow morning, a judge will sign a warrant for your arrest and the seizure of every electronic device in your home. Or you can stay here, right now, and start explaining why your daughter's laptop was used to forge a legal document. We are leaving, my father said. He was pale now. He understood what metadata meant. He knew the digital trail was the one thing he couldn't talk his way out of. One more thing, Maris said. She stepped forward, holding a second sheet of paper. We checked the receiving account, Maris said. The one you set up. Ortiz Household Bridge. We pulled the signature card from the account opening documents. She held up the paper. It showed a scrawl that looked nothing like my signature, and nothing like the signature on the power of attorney. It was a jagged, rushed autograph. And then we looked at the power of attorney signature, Maris said, flipping the page. They don't match. The person who signed the bridge account paperwork isn't the same person who traced Vivian's signature on the forgery. Different hands, Officer Wynne said. Which means different conspirators. Who signed the account opening? Mr. Ortiz? Was it you? Or was it your wife? My mother looked up. For the first time, she looked terrified. She knew whose handwriting was on that bank card. And the notary. Maris delivered the final blow. Kendra Holt from compliance just ran the notary ID listed on your document. A Ms. Sarah Jenkins. My father froze. Ms. Jenkins is currently under internal investigation by the State Licensing Board, Maris said. She has been flagged for conducting remote mobile notarizations for high-value transfers without proper witness verification. She is already on a federal watch list. And now, her stamp is on your document. That connects you to an organized fraud ring, Officer Wynne said. This isn't just a family dispute anymore. You hired a dirty notary. That is conspiracy. My father gripped his car keys so hard I thought they would snap. He looked at me. His eyes were dark, filled with a mixture of rage and defeat. He realized the walls were not just closing in. They had already crushed him. Vivian, he said. His voice was low, shaking. You are destroying this family. Over money. You are sending your sister to jail over money. No, I said. I am saving myself. You are the one who dressed her up in a wig and sent her to commit a crime. You sent her to jail. Dad, not me. Get in the car, my father snapped at Raina. But they said, Raina stammered, looking at the police. Get in the car, he roared. Raina scrambled into the back seat. My mother got into the passenger side, refusing to look at me. My father opened his door, glaring at Officer Wynne. "We will be at home," my father said. "If you want us, come get us." "Oh, we will," Officer Wynne said comfortably. "Drive safe." My father slammed the door, the engine roared to life, and the car peeled out of the parking lot, tires screeching against the asphalt. We stood there in the silence left by their wake. "Why did you let them go?" I asked again, watching the taillights disappear. "Because now they are going to run home," Officer Wynne said. "And they are going to try to delete everything. They are going to try to wipe that laptop. They are going to try to burn papers." "And that is bad," I said. "No," Officer Park said, smiling. "That is perfect, because we have a subpoena for their ISP. We will see every file they delete, every frantic Google search for how to wipe a hard drive. Destruction of evidence is a separate felony. Ms. Ortiz, by the time we knock on their door this afternoon, they will have committed 5 more crimes just trying to hide the first one." "And," Maris added, "Kendra Holt has already frozen the household bridge account at the other bank. They can't move the $20,000 they stole. They are broke, they are watched, and they are panicked." I looked at the piece of paper in Maris's hand. Author, Raina Station. It was such a small detail, a few lines of code, but it had dismantled a lifetime of manipulation. "I need to sit down," I said. The adrenaline was fading, leaving me lightheaded. "Come back inside," Maris said gently. "We have one more step. We need to secure your future so they can't touch it, even if they hire the best lawyer in Florida." "What is the next step?" I asked. "We are going to find the trust protector," Maris said. "The what?" I asked. "You don't know?" Maris looked surprised. "Your grandmother's trust deed mentions a secondary oversight layer, a third party. We need to activate them." I followed her back into the cool safety of the bank. I had never heard of a trust protector, but after today, after seeing my sister's name in the metadata of my own destruction, I knew I needed all the protection I could get. As the glass doors closed behind us, cutting off the humidity, I felt a strange sense of finality. The family I knew was gone. They had driven away in that car. What was left was just a case file number and a hard drive full of evidence. And for the first time in 32 years, I was the one holding the keys. The adrenaline that had fueled me through the confrontation in the lobby began to recede, leaving behind a cold, crystalline clarity. My parents were gone, fleeing the scene of their crime, but the war was far from over. I knew them. I knew that my father, Hector Ortiz, was currently in his car, gripping the steering wheel, spinning a new narrative. He would not stop. He would double down. He would convince himself that he was the victim, that I was the villain, and that the law was just another obstacle to be charmed or bullied into submission. I sat in the glass office, looking at the empty chair where my mother had sat just yesterday, lying to a banker. "Ms. Ortiz," Officer Leona Park said. Breaking the silence, she was standing by the door, her notebook finely closed. "You have a choice right now. You can go home and wait for us to arrest them, which might take 24 to 48 hours depending on the warrant process, or you can strike first." "I don't want to scream at them anymore," I said, my voice steady. "I don't want to slash their tires. I want to make sure they can never do this again. I want to bury them in paper." "That is the smart play," Leona said. "I recommend you file for a protective order immediately, not just a standard restraining order, but a specific petition for protection against exploitation of a vulnerable adult." "But I'm not vulnerable," I said, bristling slightly at the word. "I am competent." "Legally, they are claiming you are vulnerable," Leona corrected. "So, use their own weapon against them. You file an injunction that documents their harassment, the text messages, the threats to your career, the fake capacity letter. You frame it as coercive control if a judge signs that order. It creates a legal force field. If they text you again, violation, jail. If they try to file for guardianship, the The family court judge sees the protective order first and throws their case out. It stops them from controlling the narrative, Officer Wynne added. It puts on the public record that they are the aggressors, not the concerned parents. Do it, I said. We will file the police report as the foundation, Leona said. But you need a lawyer to file the civil protection order. Do you have counsel? I do now, I said. I pulled out my phone and dialed Elliot Brandt. Elliot was a shark of an estate attorney I had met at a networking event 2 years ago. I had never thought I would need him, but I had kept his card because he told a story about suing a bank for $3 million over a misplaced signature. He picked up on the second ring. Elliot Brandt. Elliot, this is Vivian Ortiz, I said. I have a situation involving a trust fund, a forged power of attorney, and a fake doctor's note. I am currently sitting in the back office of Crown Haven Bank with the police. There was a brief pause on the line. Then, the sound of a chair scraping against a floor. Start talking. Vivian, I am opening a file. I gave him the summary, the 30-second version, the access denied screen, the Reina disguise, the Reina station metadata, the threat to file for guardianship. Okay, Elliot said, his voice sharpening with professional aggression. Here is what we are going to do. We are going to prepare an anti-guardianship packet. If they file that emergency petition this afternoon, we need to be ready to walk into court tomorrow morning and blow it out of the water. What do I need? I asked. I need affidavits, Elliot listed. I need your boss at Northline to sign a sworn statement that you are handling your job duties perfectly. I need your friends to sign statements that you are socially active and lucid. I need your primary care physician, your real doctor, to write a letter stating you are of sound mind. We need to prove that the only instability in your life is your parents. I can get all of that today, I said. Good. Now, send me a photo of your trust deed, Elliot said. The original document your grandmother set up, I need to see the amendment clauses. I opened the folder I had brought with me. The paper was yellowing slightly at the edges. My grandmother, Lucia, had signed this 20 years ago. I took photos of the pages and emailed them to him. We waited in silence for about 3 minutes while Elliot read. Maris Cole, the branch manager, was busy typing up the notice of fraud that she was blasting out to the bank's internal legal network. Then, Elliot's voice came back over the speakerphone. He sounded different, bemused, almost giddy. Vivian, he said, have you ever read Section 12, Paragraph C of this trust? I read it years ago, I admitted. It's all legalese. Turn to page 40, Elliot said. I flipped the pages. Article 12, Administration and Oversight. Read the third paragraph, Elliot commanded. I squinted at the small font. In the event that the primary trustees are removed or incapacitated, or in the event of any dispute regarding the beneficiary's capacity, the ultimate authority to interpret the intent of this trust shall reside with the designated trust protector. Trust protector? I asked. I thought the bank was the trustee. The bank is the corporate trustee, Elliot explained. They handle the money. A trust protector is a failsafe. It is a person or entity appointed by the grantor, your grandmother, to watch the watchers. They have the power to fire the trustee, veto distributions, and most importantly, amend the administrative statutes of the trust to protect the beneficiary. Who is it? I asked. I have never met a trust protector. Look at the name listed in Schedule A, Elliot said. I turned to the back of the document. Under Designated Trust Protector, there was a company name, Pinecrest Fiduciary Services, LLC, Wilmington, Delaware. Pinecrest, I whispered. I have never heard of them. They are heavy hitters, Elliot said. They are a specialized firm that handles high-net-worth family disputes. Your grandmother didn't trust your parents. Vivian, she knew this might happen. She built a kill switch into the trust. What can they do? I asked. If we notify Pinecrest that there is evidence of familial exploitation, which we have in spades thanks to that video, Pinecrest can invoke their statutory power to permanently sever the ability for any family member to hold power of attorney over this trust. Forever. Even if a judge grants your parents' guardianship, Pinecrest can say, "That is fine, but the money stays locked here." They can block your parents from ever touching a cent. Regardless of what a local court says, activate them, I said. Call them now. I am already drafting the email, Elliot said. I am attaching the police report number and the affidavit from the bank manager. Once Pinecrest triggers the exploitation clause, your parents are fighting a ghost. They can't bully a Delaware corporation. I felt a wave of gratitude for my grandmother so strong it almost brought me to tears. She had been gone for 10 years, but she was still protecting me. She had known. She had looked at her son, my father, and she had known that one day he would come for the money. Maris, I said, looking up at the manager. Did you hear that? I did, Maris said, a small smile appearing on her face. Pinecrest, that changes everything. If they issue a directive, I can hard-code it into the account. No third-party access per trust protector. It overrides everything. I need the chain of custody, I told her. Elliot needs the video file, the metadata report, and the audit logs of the attempted transfer. We need to send it all to Pinecrest and to the court. I am burning a second drive for your lawyer right now, Maris said. My phone buzzed in my hand. It was a call. I looked at the screen. Raina. My thumb hovered over the decline button. Answer it, Officer Leona Park said softly. Put it on speaker. Let's see what she wants. She might give us the motive. I tapped the green button. Vivian? Raina's voice was frantic, breathless. It sounded like she was crying, or hyperventilating, or both. I am here, Raina, I said coldly. Viv, you have to stop this, she pleaded. You have to tell the police it was a misunderstanding. Dad is freaking out. He is tearing the home office apart. He is saying he is going to leave the country. Let him leave, I said. He can't take the money with him. You don't understand, Raina screamed. It's not just about the trust. We need the money today, by noon. Why? I asked. Why today? What happens at noon? Raina? The closing? She blurted out. Then she stopped, realizing she had said too much. What closing? I pressed. Raina, talk to me. If you want any leniency when the police come to the door, you need to tell me the truth right now. What closing? The house, she whispered. The property in Sarasota. They put $100,000 of their own money down as a deposit. It is non-refundable. If the wire for $465,000 doesn't clear by 12 o'clock, they lose the contract. They lose the deposit. They lose everything. I looked at Maris. Maris was already typing, searching the transaction history. Sarasota, I repeated. They are buying a house in Sarasota? It's not just a house, Raina sobbed. It's a complex, 4 units. They were going to live in one and rent the others. It was their retirement plan. Viv, Dad is broke. The real estate market crushed him last year. This was the only way out. They needed your trust fund to buy the property, and then they were going to pay you back with the rent money. They swore they would pay you back. They were stealing my future to buy theirs, I said. The realization was sickening. They weren't managing my money. They were embezzling it to cover their bad debts. Please, Raina begged, just authorize the wire. If you do it now, we can still save the deposit. Dad said if you sign it, he will sign a promissory note. He will pay you back with interest. Please, Viv, they are going to lose the house they live in now if this deal doesn't go through. They leveraged everything. They leveraged me, I said. They bet my life on a real estate deal. We are family, Raina cried. No, I said. Family doesn't wear a mask to rob you. Family doesn't call you insane to steal your signature. Vivian, tell Dad to start packing, I said. Because he isn't moving to Sarasota. He is moving to a cell. I hung up. The room was silent. The puzzle was complete. It wasn't just greed. It was desperation. My father, the big-shot real estate developer, was broke. He had gambled everything and lost, and he had decided that I was his piggy bank. Maris, I said, look at the wire instructions for the household bridge account. Where was the money going next? Maris tapped a few keys. We traced the routing number of the intended recipient from the failed transfer attempt yesterday. The household bridge account at Bank of America had a standing order set up. To where? I asked. Gulf Shore Title and Escrow, Maris read. Reference number ending in 559. And the purchaser? I asked. It wasn't your parents' names, Maris said. It was an entity. Verano Holdings, LLC. Verano, I said. Summer, my mother's favorite season. Graham, Maris said. Pull the corporate registry for Verano Holdings. Graham opened a new tab. He searched the Florida Division of Corporations. Here it is, Graham said. Verano Holdings, LLC, filed January 10th, 2026. Who are the managing members? Officer Wynne asked. Hector Ortiz, Graham read, and Reina Ortiz. Reina is on the deed, I said. That is why she did it. They promised her a cut. They promised her a condo. She isn't just a pawn, Officer Park noted. She is a partner. That makes her legal exposure much worse. She stood to profit directly from the fraud. So, here is the timeline, I said, putting it all together. They formed the LLC on January 10th. They put down a non-refundable deposit they can't afford. They wait for the closing date. They realize I am not going to just give them $500,000. So they concoct the incapacity story. They forge the POA. They rushed to the bank yesterday to stage the takeover. They schedule the wire for this morning to hit the escrow deadline at noon. And you walked in, Officer Wynne said, and cut the wire 2 hours before the deadline. They are desperate, I said. That explains the text messages. That explains the risk they took coming here. They are watching $100,000, the last of their money, burn up in real time. My phone buzzed again. It was Elliot. I have Pinecrest on the line, Elliot said, his voice crisp. They have received the police report number and the metadata summary. They are appalled. They are issuing an immediate freeze directive to Crown Haven. Maris, you should receive a secure email from them within 60 seconds. I am watching my inbox, Maris said. A moment later, a notification pinged on her computer. Urgent. Trust Protector Directive. Ortiz. Trust. Maris opened it. This is it, she said. Pinecrest Fiduciary Services hereby exercises its authority under Article 12 to suspend all discretionary powers of any family-appointed agent. The trust is placed under the sole protective custody of Pinecrest until further notice. No distributions allowed without Pinecrest's written seal. It is over, I said. Even if they find a corrupt judge to sign a guardianship order this afternoon, it is useless. The trust is locked from the inside. And the best part? Elliot said on the phone. Pinecrest charges their legal fees to the trust corpus. But since the attack came from the former trustees, your parents, Pinecrest can sue them to recover the costs. Your parents are going to get a bill for the lawyers we just hired to stop them. That is poetic justice, I said. Vivian, Elliot said, his tone shifting to something more serious. You need to be careful. You just cost a desperate man a massive real estate deal. He has nothing left to lose. Get that protective order filed, and get somewhere safe tonight. I am safe, I said. I am going to stay at a hotel, a nice one. I'm going to use my debit card, which still works for me, and only me. I looked at the officers. Can we add the LLC information to the police report? Absolutely, Officer Wynne said. It establishes the motive. It proves it wasn't about your mental health. It was about a real estate closing. That destroys their caring parents' defense in court. I stood up. My legs felt steady. I picked up my folder, which was now twice as thick as when I walked in. It held the evidence of my sanity, the proof of their crime, and the keys to my freedom. Maris, I said, thank you. You didn't just save my money. You saved my life. That is what we do, Maris said. She looked at the screen where the wire transfer still sat, frozen in time. Status: cancelled. Go get a hotel. Vivian, order room service, and let us handle the paperwork. I walked out of the glass office. The lobby was empty now. The sunlight streaming through the front doors looked different. It wasn't oppressive anymore. It was bright. I had walked in here a victim, a daughter terrified of being erased. I was walking out as the CEO of my own existence. My parents had tried to buy a new life with my money. Instead, they had bought themselves a felony indictment, and I had just canceled the check. The next morning, the air in the Pinellas County Circuit Court was sterile and cold, smelling faintly of floor wax and old coffee. My parents had made good on their threat. They had filed an ex parte petition for emergency temporary guardianship at 9 o'clock sharp. They were betting that a judge, seeing a letter from a doctor claiming I was psychotic, would sign the order first and ask questions later. They were betting on the system being broken. They were wrong. The system works, but only if you bring enough paper to clog the gears. I sat at the plaintiff's table with my lawyer, Elliot Brandt. My parents sat on the other side with their family attorney, a man who looked increasingly uncomfortable as he glanced at the stack of files Elliot had just placed on the judge's bench. My father looked tired, his suit slightly rumpled, his eyes darting around the room. My mother looked tragic, wearing a black dress as if she were already mourning the daughter she was trying to erase. Raina was not there. "Your Honor," my parents' lawyer began, his voice dripping with practiced concern. "We are here because Vivian Ortiz is in crisis. We have a medical capacity declaration stating she is a danger to her own financial well-being. The family is simply asking for temporary control to stop her from liquidating her grandmother's trust during a manic episode." Judge Vance looked at the medical letter. Then she looked at me. "Ms. Ortiz," she said, "do you have a response?" Elliot Brandt stood up. He didn't make a speech. He didn't plead. He simply pointed to the evidence box we had submitted 30 minutes prior. "Your Honor," Elliot said, "we do not just have a response. We have a crime scene report. The medical letter you are holding is a forgery. The doctor listed, Dr. Aris Thorne, has provided a sworn affidavit that he has never met my client. The fax header on that letter matches the real estate office owned by the petitioner, Elena Ortiz. And the manic episode described in the petition occurred at the exact same time my client was leading a strategy meeting for a Fortune 500 client, for which we have provided time-stamped billing logs and witness statements." My father stiffened. My mother stared straight ahead, her jaw set in a hard line. "Furthermore," Elliot continued, "we have a certified fraud packet from Crown Haven Trust and Bank. It includes video surveillance of an imposter entering the bank to file the power of attorney, and a digital forensic report linking the forged document's creation to a laptop registered to the petitioner's household." Judge Vance picked up the bank's report. She flipped through the pages. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. "This report says the document was uploaded from a device named Raina Station," the judge read aloud. She looked over her glasses at my parents. "Is that correct?" "It is a misunderstanding," my father's lawyer stammered. "A technical error." "And this," Elliot interrupted, playing his ace card, "is a directive from Pinecrest Fiduciary Services." My father's head snapped up. He knew that name now. He knew what it meant. "The trust protector has been activated," Elliot announced. "Pinecrest has formally cited the exploitation clause of the original trust deed. As of 8 this morning, they have permanently suspended any ability for family members to serve as agents or guardians over this trust. Even if this court were to grant the guardianship, which it should not, the order would be moot. The money is locked in Delaware. Your Honor, the parents cannot touch it." Judge Vance set the papers down. She looked at my parents with an expression that was no longer neutral. It was the look of a judge who realizes her court is being used as a weapon. "Petition denied," she said, the gavel strike sounding like a gunshot. "And Mr. Brandt," I am forwarding this file to the state attorney's office for review regarding perjury and submission of false evidence. We are already coordinating with the police. Your Honor, Elliot said. We walked out of the courtroom into the bright hallway. My parents tried to rush to the elevator, but Officer Wynne and Officer Park were waiting for them. And this time, they weren't just asking for IDs. Hector Ortiz, Elena Ortiz, Officer Wynne said, stepping into their path. We have warrants for your arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, identity theft, and forgery. My father didn't fight. He slumped, the air going out of him like a punctured tire. But my mother turned to me. Her eyes were wild. You did this, she hissed. You ungrateful child. We gave you everything. You gave me nothing, I said calmly. Grandma Lucia gave me the trust. You just tried to steal it. While my parents were being handcuffed, Officer Park pulled me aside. We picked up Raina an hour ago, she said. She was at your parents' house, trying to shred documents. We brought her in. Did she talk? I asked. She sang, Park said grimly. And Vivian, you need to prepare yourself. The twist isn't just that she helped them, it is worse. Tell me, I said. Raina confessed that she wasn't the one in the wig, Park said. I frowned. But the tattoo, we saw the tattoo. That was the plan, Park said. Your mother wrote the script. She knew that if the bank ever investigated, the digital trail would lead back to Raina's laptop because Mom used Raina's computer to make the files. She wanted a fall guy, but she didn't trust Raina to pull off the acting in the bank. Raina was too nervous. So, your mother hired a professional, a woman she knew through a shady tenant in one of her rentals, a double service. But the tattoo, I repeated. The double had Raina's tattoo. Fake, Park said. Your mother made the actress apply a temporary tattoo that matched Raina's exactly. She staged the reveal. She wanted the camera to catch the tattoo. She set her own daughter up as the perfect decoy. If the fraud worked, they got the money. If the fraud failed, the police would arrest Raina for impersonation, and your parents would claim they were victims of their delinquent daughter. I felt a cold pit open in my stomach. It was evil on a level I hadn't comprehended. My mother hadn't just tried to frame me for insanity. She had pre-framed Raina for the crime. She was willing to sacrifice both her children to save a real estate deal in Sarasota. Raina told us everything, Park continued. She told us about the escrow deadline. She told us how your mother threatened to kick her out if she didn't unlock the laptop. Raina is cooperating fully. She is going to be a witness against your parents. I looked over at my mother, who was now arguing with the officer about her handcuffs being too tight. I saw her for what she really was, not a parent, but a predator who fed on her own young. Keep her away from me, I said. Don't worry, Park said. She's not making bail anytime soon. The notary, Sarah Jenkins, she rolled on them too. She admitted your father paid her $5,000 cash to stamp that forgery. It is a slam dunk. Vivian. I spent the next hour with Elliot, signing the paperwork for the permanent protective order. It was a thick document, a restraining order that covered harassment, financial contact, and third-party communication. It was a legal wall that stated, in clear English, that my family was dangerous to my existence. One last thing, Elliot said as we sat in the courthouse cafeteria. Pinecrest has restructured the access protocols for your trust. He handed me a secure tablet. You are no longer just a user, Elliot said. You are the primary administrator. We have removed the family emergency clauses. We have installed a new requirement. Any distribution over $10,000 requires a video call verification with a Pinecrest officer, and we have changed the authentication method. No more passwords? I asked. Passwords are for people who can be hacked, Elliot said. You have a passphrase now, a string of words that only you know, and we have set up a hardware key. You need the physical USB key to log in. No remote access from Mom's fax machine ever again. I took the tablet. I logged into the Crown Haven portal using the new credentials. The screen loaded. The red banner was gone. The flashing access denied warning was gone. In its place was a calm, blue interface. Account owner, Vivian Ortiz. Balance, $480,000. Status, active. And right below my name, in small, reassuring green letters, was a new line of text. Fraud protection, active. Trust protector oversight, enabled. I stared at the screen. For the first time in 32 years, the money didn't feel like a burden or a test. It felt like a shield. My parents had tried to use the system to break me, to declare me incompetent, to erase my identity, but the system, when stripped of lies and powered by the truth, had done exactly what it was designed to do. It had identified the virus, and it had purged it. I walked out of the courthouse and into the parking lot. The sun was shining, bright and hot. I got into my car and checked my phone. There were 0 missed calls, 0 text messages. The protective order was already working, or maybe the fact that my parents were currently being processed at the county jail had something to do with the silence. I opened the banking app one last time. I touched the screen. It didn't ask me for my mother's maiden name. It didn't ask for the name of my first pet. It recognized my face. It welcomed me in. And as I drove away, leaving the courthouse and my former family in the rearview mirror, I realized that the access hadn't just been restored to my bank account. It had been restored to my life. I was finally, truly solvent. Thank you so much for listening to this story on Monica Revenge Stories. I would love to know where you are tuning in from today. Are you listening from a busy city, a quiet room, or maybe on your way to work? Please drop a comment below with your location and let me know what you thought of Vivian's victory. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and hit the notification bell to help more people hear this story.